Recording in progress.
Well, good morning all, and welcome to the Early Childhood Policy Council meeting. Before we begin, I'm just going to go through a few Zoom features. In a few moments, we'll be offering closed captioning in Zoom. To access this feature, you'll need to locate the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then click on Show Subtitle. This will allow you to view closed captions in English throughout the entire meeting. In a moment, we will also offer language interpretation services. I will now turn things over to our interpreters to describe how you can listen to this meeting in English, Spanish, or Mandarin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting. I, Giovanna Wormsbecker, and Diana Orozco will be your Spanish interpreters today. In order to provide language access, this meeting will have simultaneous bidirectional interpretation from English to Spanish and Mandarin. Please note that the translation globe will not appear until after I've read through all language instructions. Therefore, we're asking that everyone joining us for this event, please select your preferred language to facilitate hearing presenters and participants clearly, and to prevent technical glitches or interference occurring between the three language channels when one is not selected. If you are on a laptop, please locate the icon shaped like a globe at the bottom of your screen, click on Language Interpretation, and then select English. If you're on an iPad or your phone or a similar device, then locate the three-dot menu on the right corner of your screen, click on Language Interpretation, and then select English. When you speak, please do so at a moderate pace, because the interpreter is going to be simultaneously interpreting everything you say. Buenos días a todos y bienvenidos a esta reunión. Mi nombre es Giovanna Wormsbecker y Diana Orozco vamos a ser sus intérpretes en español. Esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea bidireccional en inglés y en español y mandarín. El globo de traducción no va a aparecer hasta que se haya leído todas las instrucciones en español y en mandarín y en inglés. Por lo tanto, pedimos que todos los presentes seleccionen su idioma preferido para facilitar escuchar a los presentadores y participantes con claridad, evitando que se produzcan fallas técnicas o interferencias entre los tres canales lingüísticos cuando no sea seleccionado uno de estos. Si está usando una computadora, verá un icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla a la derecha en forma de globo que dice Interpretación. Haga clic ahí y seleccione Español. Si está utilizando un iPad o teléfono, localice el menú de 3 puntos que aparece arriba a la derecha, haga clic en Interpretación de idiomas y elija Español. Cuando sea su turno de hablar, por favor recuerde hablar con voz fuerte y clara y a un paso moderado, ya que la intérprete estará interpretando simultáneamente al otro idioma. Now I will turn things over to our Mandarin interpreter. Thank you.
大家早上好，欢迎参加今天的会议。我的名字是亚楠，今天和 Sarah 一起提供普通话的翻译。为了提供语言的服务，我们今天的会议会有双向同声传译，把英语翻译为西班牙语和普通话。请注意，在我们读完所有英文、西班牙文和中文的说明之后，您才会在屏幕上看到翻译频道的地球图案。 为了避免我们未选择频道而导致技术性的故障或干扰，我们要求今天参加本会议的每一个人都必须要从3种语言当中选择您想听的语言。就算您是要以英语听取今天的会议，也必须要选择，才能够清楚地听到所有发言人还有与会者问问题时候他们发言的声音。如果您选择的是台式或笔记本电脑，等一下您会在屏幕底下看到一个地球形状的图标，点击图标之后会有一个选项出现，您可以选择英语或者是西班牙语或是普通话，就是 Chinese Mandarin。如果您使用的是 iPad 或手机或是类似的移动设备，等一下会在屏幕的右上角看到3点图标，点击之后会出现一个选项，您可以选择英语、普通话或是西班牙语，普通话就是 Chinese Mandarin。如果今天有机会您能够发言或者是问问题，请您要放慢速度，因为口译员必须同步的翻译您所说的所有内容。谢谢您 ，Thank you。
We will now enable live transcription and interpretation. Please select your preferred language channel at this time. And one more note about Zoom features, we'll be taking public comment at several points during today's meeting. At the end of each agenda item, we will announce that we are enabling the chat feature for members of the public to provide written comment. We will keep the chat feature open for a few minutes at each point. And in the final public comment period, we will also open things up for verbal comment. We will enable the raise hand feature at that time and take speakers one at a time until we need to adjourn the meeting. All right, with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chairperson Kim Johnson.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can actually talk to each other first. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Johnson, Director of the California Department of Social Services. I'm pleased and proud and privileged to be your chair of this Early Childhood Policy Council. Glad to be with you this morning, and thank you for those of you who were able to make it in person and those of you who've been able to join online, those of you who traveled early morning to arrive here this morning. And we, as always, appreciate the public and community for being with us, engaging with us in these conversations. We are excited today to have another robust agenda. We often have so much included that we sometimes do run out of time. We will do our best to try to keep things on track, but we are going to start, as we always do, staying centered and grounded by hearing voices from the field. I will then provide a brief update on the budget. We have a budget for 2022-23. We'll also talk about the work around equity and some conversations with council members in that space. I will hear from the very, very powerful subcommittee meeting, joint health advisory and workforce advisory committee, a debrief of that conversation. You'll also, as always, a standing item, hear from the Department of Social Services on the transition of programs and how we're doing, as well as from the Department of Education. And then our main focus with the panel, which we are thrilled and excited to welcome, is going to be focused around home visiting, strength-based voluntary home visiting programs in California and our opportunities to engage in that space. So again, robust and excited to be here with you. For roll call, we're going to have our support team. Thank you, support team. Take note of the council members who are in attendance here in the room and also online. So feel free to say hello and welcome in the chat, but we will do roll call in that fashion. So with that, I will take the opportunity to welcome Councilmember Antoinette Jacobs, who's going to start us off with Voices from the Field.
Good morning and greetings to you, our chair. It is just a delight to be able to finally meet you wonderful ladies in person. Also to the council members, those who are unable to be here, we'd like to say greetings to you. I don't know where to look. So I'll just move around. And also to our public guests. I am the founder and CEO of Your Mimi Inc. And I have behind me this 74-year-old woman who I've known since I was 18 years old, and I am 60. I met her at the university, and she has been my partner in crime in all the business ventures that we have done, working and starting after school programs and et cetera. I just had to bring her along. So Sarah Brothers. You have to speak within 2 minutes. That's so I'm going to move right along. Your Mimi, our target market is corporate America. So our charge, God put it on our heart, our charge was to address the infant toddler need. And so we could fall under a huge umbrella where you can only handle so much. And that is the charge that's on our heart. So with that, we had a tagline, bring your baby to work with you. So we sought corporate America, oil industry, medical, and also the entertainment union. We had great leads. This is pre-COVID, 2019, off to a great start. And it was all about from birth to age 2. There was a plethora of places you can take your baby that's age 2 and older, as you know. But for that birth to age 2, when they're coming out paternity and maternity leave, the stories are horrifying. From the ridiculous waiting list, the inflated costs. And I have 3 daughters, grown daughters, who all work for corporate America, and 2 are married and their husbands work for corporate America. And I am walking this with them. And businesses had to provide a space for moms to express their milk. It pretty much were little closets that had a cute little chair and a little refrigerator. Well, we wanted to take it to the next step and actually have a home-like environment where mom can not only express her milk, but your baby is there with you at the job site. So just jazzed about it. We had, like I said, great leads. And then when COVID hit, it just all shut down. So we could no longer say, bring your babies to work with you, because they weren't coming to work. So it's like, okay, we have to revamp and survive COVID like everyone else. But it was a win-win for both employers and employees. And it also presented a competitive edge. Businesses could say in the recruitment and also the retention, come work for our corporation. We will provide infant care for your baby for the first 2 years at no cost to you. That could be added to their benefit package. So that's how we were presented to corporate America, and they were very much interested. But right now, Your Mimi is on hiatus, because like I said, most of the employees are working remote, or they're doing some type of hybrid work schedule. So Sarah and I are now getting hands-on experience. We're both grandmas. I have 3. Sarah has 3, 4, 5, 6, not me. But I have the youngest, 1-year-old. I have a COVID grandbaby. And so I promised my daughter and son-in-law I would help you the first 2 years. And so we're 1 year in. So we're actually doing, I told Sarah, we're doing hands-on field research. So, like I said, both my daughters, I have 3 daughters, the 2 that are married are working moms. They're telecommuting, working fully remote. They work for major corporations, entertainment in Los Angeles. And then let me start with the eldest, Janae. She has a 6-year-old. Pre-COVID, she would do the 1-hour commute, drop her baby off, then another 20 minutes to go to work, and then back again. She had the anxiety of, can I still nurse? Do I want to continue to nurse? She had the guilt of abandonment, but there was a need. Her job, white collar, she's a producer, she needed to be able to concentrate. So I watched her struggle with that. Well, now that grandbaby is 4 years old, and she's at a private daycare, Montessori, a block up the road. Mom and dad both are working remote. And so it's working out for them. Now, my middle daughter, who has the 2 grandbabies, 6-year-old and the 1-year-old. The 6-year-old, of course, is in public school. They're in Los Angeles, doing quite well. Now she's going to summer school, no problem. Mom is working fully remote and has been even before the pandemic. Well, I have agreed to give 3 days a week to help with the 1-year-old. And then they hired, and I just shared this because I'm hoping I'll be able to help someone out there who is struggling in doing this. They hired another elderly lady to help 2 days. Well, when we're both down, the mom and dad, my daughter is HR and her husband is an engineer. They now are working together at home So now it becomes a fight. Well, whose job is more important? I have a call to do or face, and then I need for you to watch this 1-year-old. And so my heart just goes out to them. And that, therefore, is what Sarah and I are trying to address with the Your Mimi. We don't want parents to have to feel like they have to choose between career and then having the baby. We'd like to bring the corporate America in and recognize that you continue to offer your goods and services, but contract us and let us come in and set up a home-like environment, because we're only dealing with the babies, so that moms who are not sleeping, dads who are not sleeping, during their breaks and lunch, they can come in and hold their babies while they're at work. And then they can leave knowing that they're on the grounds, they're on site there, and then concentrate and do their work. I'm watching my daughter do this and my heart just goes out to her. So like, as I mentioned earlier, we were addressing the exaggerated waiting list, the inflated infant costs, and then the guilt of abandonment, and then also the nursing. So Sarah and I, we are advocates for offering new strategies for this growing type of remote hybrid workforce by increasing the amount of daycares which offer infant care. That fell on grandmas, that fell on strangers, just the anxiety alone. Such an impressionable time also. We like to promote government offices to offer hybrid work schedules with infant care. I'm not talking about you're at your desk and then there's a cradle right there and then you can bring your baby care. We're also like to plant the seed for military bases to have on-site infant toddler care. We just want to push the envelope a little more. We like educational institutions. As I mentioned to some earlier, I worked at the graduated and retired from the university, and there was daycare there for age 2 to 5 when they start kindergarten. But what about the infant care? We would also like there to be tax incentives for corporate America to serve as an incentive, because as I had mentioned, oil, medical, and the entertainment, they were very much interested. We were like doing site visits and talking about, we like to have set up here, that type of thing. So there is an interest, yes, and the medical, the hospitals. So just want to throw that out there, spread our wings a little bit more, but let's also tap into that fragile. You know, Sarah and I were talking, we thought we'd envision, like I said, a home-like environment. And during lunch, come get your baby, feed your baby, but then also have sessions there. And we can bring in a registered nurse to answer questions new moms may have. I mean, this is just something that I just see. We as women who have gone through this, you know, we're the best to offer those types of recommendations. Okay, I did it in 2 minutes, I think. Thank you so very much for the
A lot of policy issues you packed in that short amount of time that a lot of us have been working on for a long time. And I can clearly remember 20 years ago myself pumping in a broom closet wherever I could find it. So just real life, real stories, and the challenges also that in the last few years that we've all experienced. Appreciate you illuminating that in a very short amount of time. So thank you for sharing with us. I'm going to also turn it over to Patricia Lozano for some opening remarks and voices from the field. Welcome, Patricia.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to introduce you to one of our parent advisory members from Early Edge, California, Michelle Carpio. She's a mom and she's going to share some of her experiences with having little ones. Michelle?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Patricia. My name is Michelle Carpio, and I am originally from San Francisco, but here in the Bay Area, but I now reside in Concord. And I have 2 girls. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and Noelani and Aria. Aria, she's named after the Bay Area. And I have been here with Early Edge since 2019. And I'm also a volunteer and member of our CAC, which is our Community Advisory Council here in Concord with our with First 5. And just something that I have learned with being with little ones is how intelligent they are. That has been the most astonishing thing for me, that what we do at home, what we do, what we don't do, what we say, our actions, everything really makes an influence, and not just with me, but also with my husband. And so my husband and I are so grateful for local centers such as our First Five Center, that we've been able to take advantage of classes and workshops where we were able to learn on how we can help our girls, what stages they are going through, what we can do as parents to take advantage of what they are learning at the moment and help them excel. And that is something that I'm so grateful to for centers like these, where we as parents, my husband and I are the oldest, and so we in our families, and so we don't have any nieces or nephews, and all of our friends, they didn't have children. So we were a blank canvas when it came to childcare and raising kids. And centers like the First Five helped us learn about children, and not just about little ones, but also build relationships with other parents that may have different backgrounds, culture, social status, economic, education, very different, but we're parents, which was something that we liked because we're all going through the same challenges and experiences. And that was something that I'm very grateful. And well, I was a stay-home mom for a year and a half, and then I went back to work. And it was centers like the First Five where they helped me find childcare with cocokids.org. And now my girls, well, one already finished, she's going into second grade, and I have one right now in childcare. And it was through Coco Kids that we were able to find amazing childcare center, childcare and preschool. And again, so grateful for them because the teachers there, we have a really good communication between us, and they teach us and they tell us what they are doing in class, so then we can apply it at home. As I mentioned in the beginning, something that I learned about with being with little kids is that they are so intelligent. They are grasping everything. And so if they are learning about, let's say, insects this month in July, then our teachers let us know about what they're doing, what they're reading, what they're writing, and we try to apply it here in our home. And again, since we were very ignorant when it came to raising kids, we did what the teachers told us, and we have actually seen the progress that they have. And I am humbled and blessed that my daughters are doing very well. And I can't compare with others because everyone has different situations, but I'm so grateful that we had resources in our community to help us parents for our children to excel. And if there's anything that I have also learned is that the first 5 years of a child's development really makes a difference in what they will be in the future. So this, and sorry, I think I'm going over, but I am really grateful that we have programs, local programs for us parents. And so thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for talking about the power of early educators in our lives as parents and in the work they do every day with your children, and sharing a little bit more about your children. We appreciate you being here and sharing that with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to a very high-level budget update. So I'm going to kind of warn you in advance that please do feel free to ask any questions to go in depth with any of the areas that I'll cover. And then also if anything that I don't cover that you'd like to ask questions about, I welcome those. I'm going to ask Karen to support me here a little bit by putting in the chat where you can find a larger document of the governor's budget summary, but if you look for sections related to children and families, as well as it's called the Education and Parents Agenda in the document, as well as Health and Human Services, that's what I'll be speaking from today. So I want to just start by saying I am tremendously grateful, especially having, this is my third year as director of the department, and just incredibly grateful that we have had space where we've had some revenue to do additional investments, especially in children and families. And they have been tremendous. I want to lift up, while it's not social services, I want to lift up these significant investments in children's behavioral health. I really hope that all of you are getting tuned into these opportunities that are geared at supporting our children kind of along the age spectrum in any environment setting, whether it be school or early childhood or any other place, to really ensure that we all have the supports as adults in their lives to help them, but also that we have the connection points and resources every day for them. So 120.5 million on urgent needs and emergent issues in children's behavioral health. That's following a $4.4 billion investment that we made the year prior in this space. And again, we'll have the Department of Healthcare Services and our California Health and Human Services Agency leading that work of identifying ways we are building wellness and resilience in support of our children and youth. There's a number of investments also that I want to highlight with healthcare services, Medi-Cal coverage for all income eligible Californians. That is all a tremendous investment, a long time in the making, that will ensure that those who need access to healthcare services that can't otherwise afford them have just that. So that's a huge investment moving forward and going forward. I also wanted to point out Department of Developmental Services investments, where they have 65.5 million in this current year now to support the transitions for children who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, moving from early start to the school system. I know we've talked a lot to families who've had that experience where they've been in early and start, they kind of have the supports they need in that space, but the transition to school, things change, different offerings and services, and so there's some additional investment to really work on making that transition streamlined and ensuring the services are still in place. And then I'm going to turn over to the Department of Social Services and some investments I want to highlight for you there. One, I want to note that in terms of our continued focus on economic impacts and economic supports and recovery, the governor and the legislature have agreed to increase the grant amounts for those that are participating in CalWorks program. It's effective October 1. It becomes an 11% ongoing increase at plus 10%. So what that really translates to is for a family of 3 that's living in a high-cost county where their grant amount was $925 a month today, it will be $1,130 per month come October. So again, that's just to give you an example of what that might look like. In addition to that, we're working with the Department of Child Support to ensure that the dollars that are intended to support the child are going to the child as opposed to being recouped as part of the safety net. So more dollars in the hands of families experiencing poverty in California. As it relates to child care and development programs, we have a number of things. Increased child care subsidies, or slots, as we often refer them to, an additional 36,000 subsidies will be offered in the coming year. We also have some dollars dedicated to supporting the alternative payment programs who enroll and help families get connected to those critical subsidies. So $20 million to support the APs in that effort. We also, the Emergency Child Care Bridge for foster families, I always give a shout out to Los Angeles. How I always say it is know whose baby you're taking care of at the state level when things go to scale. So we know that's LA's baby. And this was a program that started in Los Angeles County that was really about supporting the babies, the infants and toddlers, direct connection to quality child care and development services so that aunt, uncle, cousin, relative can say yes to supporting their child as a resource family, as a foster family. And so that program has an additional $35 million annually, some additional administrative dollars to make sure, again, that resource families are available. Childcare is not the barrier to supporting that connection to family in the foster care system. I am thrilled to say through our continued conversations with the Child Care Providers United, and this is subject to ratification by CCPU, we have $100.2 million to support the creation of Health and Retirement Benefits Trust. This is significant. This is a huge milestone for this state. And I know there's more work to do, and I'm sure we'll have some conversation in that space, but in terms of commitment to healthcare, especially for those who are caring for others, it's a critical investment to continue moving in that direction and providing some direct support. Also, of course, we are continuing to roll out the supplemental payments to providers as part of the previous agreement. That was $255.5 million as well. I also want to note that we have been waiving family fees. Again, economic supports. Actually, we've been waiving family fees through the pandemic, and we do have additional $136 million to do that in the current year. There's another $107.6 million to continue the hold harmless policy to pay providers based on authorized hours as opposed to attendance for that continued stability in the programs. The local child care resource referral programs will also receive $10 million to support their continued partnership with COVID relief. While we are having our very first in-person and hybrid meeting here, we still do have high COVID transmission rates, but just grateful for all the work we've done to take the steps to keep ourselves healthy and safe. Still more to be done going forward around testing, personal protective equipment, et cetera. And so the RNRs will continue to help that role with the workforce and make those connections. We also have an additional funding supported for the infrastructure. This is facilities, childcare facilities and development dollars that will be going forward. Would say is that 100 million for 22-23? Yeah, thank you for that. I also just want to note, and I think I do this every year for the budget update, tremendous investments continuing. It was $12 billion last year. We're continuing, those were multi-year investments in housing and homelessness, continuing to address the needs and helping those that are unsheltered meeting their housing goals, a lot of which we have specific programs dedicated to specific populations like families, like older adults, et cetera, and those will be continuing moving forward. There's quite a bit of resource in the budget also connected to supporting foster youth, not only again on the preventative side, which I always want to make sure we're making the connection in this space, this body, on how early childhood education is a protective factor and buffer in terms of child abuse prevention and neglect, but also on supporting foster youth that have kind of the greatest and most complex needs, and ensuring that we also can connect them to families and homes with the wraparound supports they need to be successful. So a lot of money in that space. Happy to go into those in more detail if people would like. And then I know that we have Sarah Neville Morgan here from the Department of Education is going to be giving us an update in just a moment, and she'll also likely cover some of the additional investments in education. But I want to specifically shout out the continued investment in building community schools across California. Just that, this is a place that families are connected to that we can really leverage and support in giving additional resources to families through that pathway. And the highest ever per pupil spending in the state of California this year with this investments by the governor and legislature. And also more work on dual language learners and support in transitional kindergarten and preschool. And more. So again, I'll defer to Sarah to say more about some of the investments on the Department of Education side during her update. So again, that was high level and quick. I will happily first maybe turn to Lupe to say, is there anything that I missed that you want to highlight for the group?
No, I think you covered it, and I appreciate the rapid speed.
Speed fire budget.
Budget.
Okay. Any questions or other items that people would like to hear more about?
In regards to facilities, I'm glad to see a lot of money coming in. One of the struggles that some of the agencies within Monterey County, for example, are facing is the language, and perhaps it changed. I haven't read the updates for new facilities. So County Office of Ed, for example, our program, we don't own any land, but it's a requirement to own the land if you want to apply for a new facility, funding for new facilities. So we are usually creating and developing partnerships with our local LEAs, the city of Salinas, different entities. We are grateful to have acquired a lot of spaces for facilities. But now with this language, we're limited to what we have and if they have a space. But if we are wanting to expand, I would like to see if eventually we can work on changing that requirement, because it's limiting our ability to expand services, because we can't apply for new facility funding because the land is not ours. We do get lease agreements that are for 15 years, 20 years, working with the different partners that we have. So that's how the current language reads for Head Start. As long as we get that lease, we don't have to be the owners of the land. And we have been able to get land and build new classrooms and expand services to our communities. So it's just something that I would like to have considered in the future, please.
Thank you for raising that.
Sonia, could you just let folks know your full name? We just, yes, my apologies. If you could all just mention who you are for the folks on Zoom.
Sonia Jaramillo, Monterey County Office of Ed. That's where I work.
And I see Virginia Eigen from our advisory committee. Virginia, please go ahead.
I think it's great that all this money is going into early childhood, and I love that the budget is reflecting that. But are there any plans to help with getting staff and retaining them? Many of our employees, including myself, are moving over to transitional kindergarten, and we already were short-staffed to begin with. So just wondering if there's any money or plans for trying to recruit people into early childhood.
Yeah, so I only really covered what's new. We've had some multi-year investments from the year prior that are dedicated just for that. So it's a great point, both in terms of the supplemental payments I did mention, but also in terms of just additional, obviously we've had rate increases as well. But Lupe, anything specific you'd call out in terms of just other dollars besides the rates, the supplemental payments?
Yeah, again, Lupe Jaime Marlem, Deputy Director for the Child Care Development Division, and the supplemental rates in particular, as part of Budget Act 2223, that is going into 2223, is the supplemental rates that are going to be targeted both Title V centers as well as our private centers. And so we will have a child care bulletin, a CCB released on that in the upcoming. And so please, more to come on that. And as we get to my presentation, I'll make sure to put a link in the chat to make sure you know where to look for that. But obviously that's going to be some help to be able to utilize to continue to support our staffing retention.
And this is Sarah Neville-Morgan from CDE. There's also some funds in the UPK planning and implementation that can be used to engage, support all of those pieces around our state preschool program as part of Universal Pre-K. And then additionally, not in the budget, but related to it, we'll be doing some work around accelerated pathways to help our Title V address those entry level and getting people a faster route to their permit so that we can get more people with that assistant level permit in a really expedited way that looks more at their practice and their experience as part of that.
Great, please. Mary, can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. Did you call on me? Sorry. Hi, everyone. I just, I heard Virginia say something that was just really poignant in that in terms of staff retention, but I think also in terms of depressed wages, we're going to lose, and we are losing. Sounds like Virginia is switching over. Longtime ECE providers and educators who are going to move over to TK because it is more lucrative, it is more secure, it is more stable. And I guess, could you maybe respond to the field who's listening in the midst of record budget surpluses nearing $100 billion, to not see significant commitment to wage increases to address the very problem Virginia described. Can you just tell the field, how do we how do we keep hope? We know that a lot of the surpluses were listed under sort of one-time spending allocations. And of course, increasing wages shouldn't happen just once. That's not sustainable. But how do we solve this issue of everything for the last 10 years mostly has been one-time funding, but the wages we need to retain our workforce requires long-term commitment. So there's just this challenge we're facing. And so I just don't know if you have anything to share with us to restore some hope as to what we need to be doing to get that message across.
Thank you for the opportunity and question, Mary. And I want to just maybe back up again to say in the budget update, that's the 2022-23, but to your point, there have been even the prior year investments, as I mentioned, some multi-year commitments. And so I just, again, want to make sure I didn't emphasize that enough. And I think you're going to give me the number. It's a $1 billion number of investment that was included in the prior year budget in this multi-year agreement related to rate increases and the supplemental payments that we just referenced. Which are tremendous and historic and unprecedented. So let me just make sure that I say that in the space of also that is your victory, all of you, all of our victory in terms of really lifting up the need and investment in this workforce going forward. The other thing I'll say about that is, and I think Lupe is going to speak to this in her update, is that we do have both through the Child Care Providers United conversations, as well as a separate work group, a conversation that is more about the longer term, which is the rate and quality work group conversations, which is really what is right now the rate and quality work groups looking at the cost of doing business in recognition of what the cost is, not necessarily what we're paying, right? We're trying to be intentional about that conversation. To really understand what additional recommendations, and there are others on this council that are part of that group that I welcome to add in here. What is the structure? What is the framework that we need to be working under to be able to adequately support and fund the retention, the recruitment, all of what you just addressed going forward. So that is where we are going. That is the work that we have ahead of us. But I want to again note that the prior year investments were $1 billion investments in this sector in workforce and the additions that I added on. But Lupe, if you want to give specifics or I don't know if you have that right in front of you or add on to that.
I don't have the specifics of the total, but this current budget has a 1.3 billion, and that is on top of what was on fiscal year 22-23 multi-year. But happy to add that when during my segment too.
Sure. So want to just appreciate the comments and notes, right? We have work to do. But also want to note that we certainly have a path forward in roadmaps, not only with what I just referenced, but also master plan. I didn't see who's hands first. So.
I appreciate it. Why don't we take some in the room, and Janet, we see yours as well, but Mirren, would you like to go?
So when we talk about...
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little more on your full name? I appreciate it.
Good morning. My name is Miren Algorri, and I'm a family child care provider, and I'm a part of ECPU. So when we talk about investments, we know there is a huge ongoing investment on TK. Is the governor aware that family child care providers are not included on the mixed delivery system, and how this is going to impact family child care? Because when you have a business plan, it won't be sustainable just caring for infants and 2 years old.
Sarah, did you want to take that? It's a TK question around the family child care providers' options to participate.
Sure, and I'll be able to do more when I do my update on universal pre-K. So I think one of the big things is we look at both the administration and the legislature and their investments, that they're doing both subsidized childcare and have really significant investments in the subsidized childcare, as well as in our state budget, we have through Proposition 98 a requirement for a certain guarantee for educational dollars, and that we call Prop 98 in the budget. And so TK is funded out of Prop 98 as part of that education budget requirements that are there every single year. So there's those pieces in the budget. And they, in addition, have invested pretty significant funds in our state preschool program, CSPP. CSPP is a mixed delivery, so it has a mix of LEA or local educational agencies, as well as community-based organizations. And in that, we do have family childcare home education networks as part of it. So in that mixed delivery, it's a mix of center-based and home-based programs providing CSPP. And I'll go into more detail around some of those investments in CSPP, but I always counter with the fact that we do have significant investments on the childcare side as well as on the education side of the budget.
Why don't we pop over to Janet Zamudio and then we'll take Robin's hand.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments, explanation, investment that we've seen. However, to elaborate on what Virginia and Mary were saying, and what I'm hearing as some of the comments that are being shared by staff, there's also childcare centers, family childcare outside of the subsidy system, or that are not even part of anything of what we're talking about right now. And teacher retention and teacher recruitment efforts there have just been decimated by the pandemic. And if it was already hard to recruit and retain teachers, the pandemic has exacerbated that situation. I work at Stanford. I'm the director of childcare. I worked for over 20 years in the R&R world at Bananas and Children's Council of San Francisco. And I've never seen anything like what we're experiencing right now. I support the work of 6 centers on our campus, which are providing spaces for 900 children. That's our capacity on our campus. And we're at like 70% of our capacity because we cannot hire. And we have an all-time, the highest number of children who are waiting for spaces on campus. And we're in a very high cost area. There's teachers who are coming from Modesto, Turlock, Sacramento to come work at Palo Alto. We cannot hire in our same area. I think it's really important to take a hard look at what has been happening with our childcare programs, especially those out of the subsidy system that we won't touch with anything of what's been shared in this meeting. Because if we can't recruit or retain teachers while we're trying to create a UPK system, transitional kindergarten, expand that, and we can't even keep what we have now, the situation is going to get even more dire. And it's very sad that this is happening, and we have to support our entire system and focus on everything within and outside of subsidy.
Janet. Robin, I saw your hand, and then Natalie.
Yeah, I just
I'm sorry, if you could say your full name.
Oh, sorry, Robin Layton, Educational Enrichment Systems from San Diego. And we provide CSPP and CCTR subsidies for children, birth through entrance to elementary school. And I just want to ditto what everybody's saying about the staffing crisis that has gotten, it's always been there. It's gotten worse during COVID and getting worse due to TK expansion. But I also want to point out that not only are we losing staff to TK, we have also lost 3 centers due to the elementary school sites where we were leasing space, needed that space for their TK expansion. And so it's, we as of July 1st, the fear that we thought would happen became a reality. And so 140 students are currently not being served in the CSPP program right now. So we're looking for space. And then I also wanted to, and that this policy council, what we're bringing up today is not new to this council. And so really the message that I'm still hoping will transfer to the administration is what we're all hearing today. I also wanted to give a quick update on the rates committee because I am on that as well, or rates work group. That's going very well. While it's disappointing we don't have rate increase right now, the rates work group, which I hope everybody can be at the the August meeting. Maybe we can announce that because I don't have the date memorized, but that's where we'll have our final draft report. The report is coming out that we are going to recommend the true cost of
what this, what we provide. So it's in the mixed delivery system, which includes centers and home-based. And true cost is actually what it costs, not what parents can afford to pay. Because as we all know right now, the cost of care is based on the fact that our staff are subsidizing the program by accepting low wages. So I think everybody's going to be pleased with the recommendation. What's going to happen after the report is that we're going to have to remind the administration that they wanted this work group. Here's the rate. It's based on reality. Let's fund it. So it's going to take all of us. And I see there's 410 people on the call. So that's a lot of people.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Natalie, you had something to say. And if you could say your full name, thank you.
Natalie Gaxiola, I work for the Lennox School District for a CSPP program. And unfortunately, with there's a lot of great things coming in, but also timing of everything is a huge factor. And it was very unfortunate this last year ended with our program having to lay off 14 teachers. There's a lot of the kids that we serve are going over to TK. A lot of our staff is looking for ways, of course, because it is more financially stable to work. So we are losing good quality teachers, and it seems that like what we've been promised for years and working hard, and people gone back to school to get their bachelor's and their master's and doing all these things, but yet right when we're at that level where we're getting early ed is getting the attention, the money's going to people who are either just joining in but are already enrolled in the credential program, and that we're looking to teach actually above early ed, but has been convenient to step into early ed. So we're not keeping people with true experience. So that's my worry, is that in the transition of everything, because of timing, we're gonna lose a lot of well-qualified early ed teachers, which will maybe discourage parents from keeping their kids and enrolling their children in early ed if they don't have good quality educators with the experience to be able to support with children. And we are hearing consistently, and it's very promising to hear the universal preschool, and we're hearing funds coming in, and it says you can, or people are encouraged to use it for wages, but how do we ensure that they are being used for wages? Because what I'm seeing at the local level is there's a lot of like local politics that play into that. So how do we guarantee that the money's going again, just like directly to students and directly to staff members to support those students? So that was just
thank you, Natalie. And Tanya, I see your hand, and welcome you to join, and then Dean, and also just mindful of the time, and we'll have some other opportunity as well. So Tanya.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be really quick, but I'm really excited to hear Tanya McMillan, Chair of the Workforce Subcommittee. I'm very excited to hear what Sarah's going to present. And I hate to say this right now, but I have to say this. We told you so. We told you guys that this TK program was going to be crippling, and now we're seeing the effects of it. And so, Sarah, I really want to hear what you're going to present today, because when Miriam asked her question, made her comment, there are so few family child care providers who are part of a network. And so for that to be the only block where family child care is recognized, it's still not fair. It's still not equitable. So I know we have to move on, but I hope that what is going to be presented today is not leading where this conversation is going right now, because it's not good.
Thank you, Tanya. Dean, please go ahead.
Well, good morning, everybody. Dean Tagawa from Los Angeles Unified School District. And we have both. We have the TK and the state preschool program. So it always puts us in an interesting position, because we have to support both. So one of the things that I was just going to really quickly comment on was, one, we're also struggling with enrollment in our state preschool programs. And so I can connect with everybody out there who's talking about it. The other part of it, I wanted to throw in one other perspective. As a lot of our folks from early ed move into the TK and system, it's good for the state long term because we're getting teachers who have the experience in early ed to move to that next level, to really help reframe what kindergarten can look like, what transitional kindergarten should be. And so in some ways, there's also a plus to this as our folks move on. It is tougher on the other end, which is why I think really looking at career pathways, looking at how we're investing those dollars with the most recent planning grant on how are we going to help teachers who are in early ed or our aides go back to get a bachelor's degree, to go back and get their child development permits, to pursue AAs. So to kind of strengthen the workforce from the bottom up, I think is going to be important. So I just wanted to bring that perspective that as we give opportunities to other folks to move forward, it does build the system, P12 as a whole. So thank you.
Dean, I'm going to turn it back to the chair.
Thank you for all of those comments and questions. And again, we will continue this conversation for sure going forward. A couple of follow-ups and requests. One, I want to note that the rate and quality work group meets again on August 12th. August 12th from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. August 12th, 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. for what Robin referenced in terms of recommendations of the rate and quality work groups. Just want to follow up on that. And we are going to move and we're going to have some more conversation throughout the update for begin. So I want to note that at our last policy council meeting that occurred in January, we did talk about having a standing item focused on children and equity. And we thank Khadija Alam-Javid and Carola Olivia Olson, who have graciously volunteered to serve in leading that conversation and work. And so I'm going to invite Carola to give an update to the group, to the council on equity.
Thank you. Buenos días a todos. Good morning, everyone. During the last months, Khadija and I met to discuss any potential topics that related to equity, access, and inclusion that we as a council could benefit from learning about. And we thought about beginning with a conversation in our next meeting in September, and maybe even identify a speaker who can share with us data that will help us understand the California context around equity and policy issues. These could vary, but include rates to access to childcare subsidies, maternal health, birth rates, and beyond. But one idea was to begin with maybe having a member. Khadija had this idea of having a member of a state-based organization like the Advancement Project California, who could present us on what a statewide equity index can look like for early childhood programs. They have done some work around this and focused on mapping what needs exist across the state. Also, we thought about, I don't know if you remember, but last year we had Dr. Chantel Meek, who's from the Children's Equity Project. And she provided, shared with us the report that was called, Start with Equity from the Early Years to the Early Grades. And in that presentation, she highlighted inequities faced by millions of children from historically marginalized communities across the US. And this report focused specifically on harsh disciplines, particularly with Black children, lack of inclusion with students with disability in general classrooms, and inequitable access to dual language programming, for example, for dual language learners. Now, they've worked on a new report that follows up on that one, but is specifically addressing the state of inequity in California's early childcare and early learning systems. And it does focus on those three particular areas, but it does also provide California specific policy items for an agenda, a policy agenda that informs the state's master plan and also gives in recommendations for more equitable systems for the state's youngest learners. So I can put the link on the chat to that report. So today I'm sharing is what we've done so far, and next I welcome any questions or comments, así que los invito a compartir sus ideas y comentarios.
Thank you, Carola, and perhaps council members could, if you have input or feedback for Carola, to put it into the chat. If you're here in person, we can make note of it just for purposes of time, but
okay. Sounds good.
Support staff want to thank you for that report out.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, Kim.
I was just going to say,
and if you could just state your name.
I'm Kim Tillo Brownson. I'm here in person, and nice to see everyone in person and on video. I just want to lift up appreciation for Carola report out, and also thinking about how to integrate childcare access with the overlay of expulsions, suspensions, DLL access, and bringing those together. I think we've had several separate conversations about each of those, but the way that children and families oftentimes experience them are the same. And to the extent that we can actually lift this up as a potential priority for the future around where there are gaps and where there's space for future investment. I just think either if it's Dr. Meeks from, I think it's Arizona, or a homegrown California report, that is, I think, on the list of things that would be very helpful for us thinking about not just the child care system, but the whole child system we want to build for California's kids in the future.
And I think that's a great point, the integration. Just like when we talk about dual language learners, not understanding that this dual language learners are children who use varieties of languages in the home and community. So we're talking about dialects, vernacular, heritage, native languages, right? When the goal is language preservation, revitalization, so bringing it back to the families. And that there's also disability, right? The access to children with disabilities or delays into general classrooms and what that looks like in dual language classrooms. So I think all of it needs to be not compartmentalized, but really looking when we're thinking about a system, how we use language and how we are addressing the totality of children and contexts and issues.
Thank you, Carola. I do want to make a note that we're going to now open the chat for attendees for a few minutes of public comment, and we'll do this at the end of each agenda item throughout the meeting. And Chair Johnson, if it's okay with you, we could turn to the advisory committee report out briefly from our two chairs of the advisory committees.
I will just say that I have the privilege of participating in the meeting, and it has been extremely powerful. It was held on June 21st on the heels of Juneteenth, and so I turn it over to Chair McMillan and Chair Ignatius to celebrate the great and powerful conversation that took place in that advisory. And Myra, we see you. So thank you.
Thanks for applause. So I am going to start the conversation. And then whatever I leave out, Mary, please fill in the gaps. Okay, so we had a very powerful joint committee meeting. I had to write myself notes. So we invited Dr. Krishana Lloyd from Child Trends, Dr. Leah Austin from UC Berkeley, our own Keisha, and from, I can never say her last name. Thank you. From the Black Californians United for Early Care and Education to join us. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Who was it?
Dr. Leah Austin.
I said,
oh, you said then it was 3.
Okay. And on the heels of Juneteenth, what Mary and I discussed and what we wanted to happen as a result of this meeting, number one was for everyone to recognize Juneteenth, but we also wanted everyone to know why we should recognize Juneteenth and how it relates to early care and education. Briefly, Dr. Austin, she presented a presentation on Juneteenth today, and she expounded on the state of Black educators in this field of work. Dr. Lloyd, she's from Child Trends. She presented research on Black families. She presented us with trends and shifts and cultural assets, and how they relate to education policy and practices that we're operating under today. She also is a direct descendant from slavery, and her family received reparations. And so that was very powerful to know. And Keisha presented the 10-point plan policy where she addressed Black children, Black families, and the Black workforce, and submitted her own personal story about how this 10-point plan came to be and the harm that it has done to the early learning systems. Let's see here, I made myself notes here. So that's what they each presented to us, and it helped point out the consequences that systemic racism and sexism has caused in the early care and education system, and how it needs to be, number one, addressed. Number 2, addressed. Number 3, addressed. And so, Mary, you want to add what's in your memory?
Yeah, I think I'll just add that, you know, when we were presented with the fact that Juneteenth, that the next committee, the parent subcommittee meeting was going to be on Juneteenth, the suggestion was like, let's find another date. And it was like, why? Let's just move it the next day and actually talk about Juneteenth and not, I mean, for many people, Juneteenth is still, they don't know what it is. I talked to a lot of people who had that Monday off and didn't really understand why. And so I think the point of us having this joint committee meeting was to make it visible and to celebrate and honor the incredible contributions of Black families and early educators to today's system, but to recognize that the shameful poverty wages that we force early educators to accept and the racist subsidy policies that we force families to accept in order to afford childcare are really rooted and can be traced back to our country's not reckoning with slavery and the impacts it's had over 400 years. And so I think really making those connections and learning from the incredible presenters. And I think Keisha really put forth the Black Californians United for ECE's policy recommendations that aren't, you know, pie in the sky. They're tangible, they're concrete. And I think as we are doing the right thing in addressing language, you know, DLLs and immigrant children, we need to also be considerate and use a targeted universalism approach to addressing the huge gap for Black children and early educators. So it was a call to action for all of us, not only educating ourselves, but also not just listening, but like, how are we going to act? And I think it was just beautiful listening to each of them talk about their own families and making that visible, because I think as women of color in this field, we don't always show up as our whole selves, and we got to witness them really showing up as their whole selves, and it was brilliant and amazing. So that's all.
And to end our presentation, what was really impressive was the fact that these women had research, they had data that proved what they were saying was a reality. And at some point, what Mary and I had a discussion afterwards, at some point, California is going to have to get on the ball, especially in family child care where there is a lack of data. We need to put something in place in order for us to really address the needs of family child care as a family child care provider. So I can put that out there. So yeah, I left feeling empowered and amazing after our meeting, and I hope everybody else did as well.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. And again, another reminder, if that didn't convince you, to please do participate in the parent and workforce advisory meetings. We invite everyone and love to see these turnouts in that space too. Just extremely, extremely powerful, and appreciate you all sharing that with us. We are going to move to Dr. Lupe Jaime Milam, who's going to provide us an update on the transition of programs.
Lupe, may I advance the slides for you?
Yes, okay, that would be wonderful. So again, I'm Lupe Jaime Milam, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Child Care and Development Division, and very pleased to be with everyone this morning. So this month marks the 1-year anniversary of this new division. I say that quite proudly, and though I have my mask on, it might be a good thing because I might get a little tearful at the same time, because together we have come to this place. Not only so many of you have offered us grace, you have offered us support, and you continue to walk alongside us as a new division, and extremely gratitude for that. So thank you alone. With this, I went off my talking points for a moment to just take that in and say again that CDSS, as you know, approaches this journey with the understanding that California's child care and development system is only as resilient as the child care and development contractors, the providers who serve families and children. Many of them are navigators, are teachers, are support and resources for the stability of our families and children. And that is quite critical. With that statement, I want to say that our first July quarterly report will take place later today at 2:30 p.m. And we will have a celebration of this progress filled with interactive games, impact stories, and even baby pictures of our team members. So you get to see them in different lights, and so we hope that you are able to join us, and we will make sure to provide links in the chat for this event too. But of course, everything is also on our website for the CCTV website too. Let's go to the next slide. So I want to thank Robin for giving us a brief presentation during the last segment in regards to rate reform and quality public work group, NJLMC, which she is a member of the work group. As a reminder of this group, the state and CCPU have established a joint labor management committee to develop recommendations for a single reimbursement rate structure to present to the Department of Finance no later than November 15, 2022, which is around the corner if we really think about that. And then also CDSS is partnering with WestEd to lead facilitation discussions working with the JLMC and the work group. The work group itself also has the charter of being able to provide a final recommendation to the JLMC by August 15th. Again, I think we talked about that there is the next meeting that is August 12th from 8:30 to 11:30. We really would like everyone to continue to participate. And on the chat, we will make sure to also put a link of where you can continue to send your feedback, because you will have access to be able to provide direct feedback to the recommendation that's being provided. The next slide, please. In terms of supplemental rate payments, as a major part of our work this past quarter, it's been partnering with our CCPU partners to operationalize our bargaining agreement with them. Initiatives outlined in the bargaining agreement include rate increases, rate supplements, the development of a new rate structure, pandemic relief funding of childcare providers, and a training partnership fund. CDSS has set one-time supplemental rates to eligible licensed family childcare home providers and several payment rounds, as well as license exempt, for a total of $144.5 million through a partnership with the Foundation of California Community Colleges. The supplemental payments range from $1,500 to $10,000, and smaller monthly payments are set to continue through fiscal year 22-23. As mentioned, this is a multi-year investment. Licensed private centers that serve children enrolled in voucher-based subsidized programs and direct service contractors will also receive a supplemental rate. These payments are expected to go out in the fall, and we'll also make sure that we'll provide a link in the chat for more information on those. We jumped over to the next slide that talks about our CCTR. We were quite pleased to receive as many RFAs as we did, and particularly because quite a few RFAs were from brand new contractors across the state, specifically addressing childcare deserts, as well as looking at infant toddler care. So this quarter, the department awarded $107 million in general child care and development programs, which is CCTR expansion funding, to programs located with areas of low supplies of child care and to about 106 participants. And so you can kind of see how they got spread out. Of course, the CCTR is a subsidized childcare program that serves children from birth to 3 years old through after school and school-age children, so 0 to 13. And families can qualify for programs based on their income if they are seeking employment, pursuing education, or unhoused. So let's go to the next slide. Next slide speaks to the Child Care Infrastructure Program. And let me first call out to the PowerPoint that you're looking at this slide about the 5,100 RFA applications that we received. We were expecting about a little bit over 2,000. Did we realize that floodgates were open and people were applying? And not only that, but a good majority of them with licensed family childcare home providers. And so it has taken a bit longer as a consequence of receiving so many, but I think that is great because it shows definitely a need for this. And so last year, the budget included funding for the Child Care and Development Infrastructure Grant Program. This grant program will fund major and minor renovations. The funding will be used to expand and preserve access to child care and development opportunities for children up to 5 years old, and will focus on child care deserts. And so we will be sending out notices, because I think that's the next question that comes out is when will we know? We'll be sending out notices on a rolling basis. For now, I believe that individuals should have already received their first notice a couple weeks ago, just to say, check your email, something is coming. From there, it may be that some people already started to receive results of the RFA. Please know that we're doing it on a rolling basis because of the massive amounts, which means that one person may be notified maybe next week, another person could be notified a month later. I know we all talk because I was in the field before on the other side, so want to make sure that I call that out too, and be able to stay tuned for that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so to maximize access to child care and unified CalWorks program policies, CDSS has
clarified program requirements to allow parents whose children are enrolled in a subsidized voucher program to access in-home license exempt care if they sign a self-attestation form that they are the primary employers of this childcare provider. This is important because we had families that were enrolling on our stage 1 contract, was receiving the in-home care with guidance in our stage 1 contract, and then wanting to transfer to 2 or wanting to select other choices of care, and then finding out that their in-home provider was not allowed. And so we checked obviously with ACF, and in line with CCDF policies, we have sent out new guidance now to say that yes, this is something that is allowed for families, and obviously there is paperwork attached to this too. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. As part of the transfer, the child care and adult care food program also transferred over to CDSS. And so I'm going to share just some brief updates on behalf of my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Hernandez. Jesse Rosales was appointed as the branch chief over the CACFP program this quarter. The branch has also submitted a suite of COVID-19 waivers to USDA related to on-site monitoring, meal service time, and parent guardian meal service to mitigate the impacts of transitioning back to operations as normal as we can be. I use that in parentheses, of course. These waivers will allow the state more flexibility to respond to any future COVID-19 waves. CDSS also finalized procurement of the Bridgerton online training platform. Through this platform, CDSS will be able to offer over 50 courses that support practices to enhance the quality of the meal service experience and comply with the CACFP requirements. The platform also offers trainings in Spanish, but please know that in subsequent years, we will be expanding to other languages too, as we really believe in language justice. And then let's go to our next slide. So our next stakeholder update call will be today, 2:30 to 4 p.m. and will be, as mentioned, a celebration of our 1 year here under CDSS. We will put a link in so you have that information available for you. That was a rapid speed transition report update. There is so much more, and of course, please feel free to look at that transition report for more information for this. Again, it continues to be my pleasure and my privilege to walk alongside many of you and be part of this work. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Lupe, for that very rapid fire and phenomenal update and for your leadership in the transition through the course of this. We're very grateful that the governor appointed you to lead this work, and so proud of all that's happened. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're going to now turn it over to the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction at the Department of Education, Sarah Neville Morgan, our fellow council member. Sarah, welcome for Department of Education updates.
Thanks so much. I thought it was on later on the agenda, but happy to start now. So let me do a quick quiet of all the emails that sort of bing through. And we will start. Oops, sorry guys. Since I wasn't expecting to get on yet, I have everything on. All right, so just thank you so much, Kim, for giving me space here to be able to share a few things. As you all know, I'm Sarah Neville Morgan. I'm a Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction at CDE, and Early Ed is one of my divisions, but I also have expanded learning, multilingual support that addresses all of our English learner as well as our migrant, immigrant, refugee funding dollars that come through to education, our expanded learning and nutrition services and special education also. So those divisions. I'm going to share a few updates mostly focused on universal pre-kindergarten and what the state investments have been in that space, and a little bit on our pre-K to third grade alignment as we work to weave together all of those educational opportunities. So if we go to the next page, That's just our welcome and introduction that we always like to start with. All of our photos that we use in our presentations are from our children. And so you'll see a variety of programs across California represented and children across California. Next slide. One of the major things that have happened in the budget, not only with all of the investments in childcare, but also in transforming California's public school and educational system. As a reminder, the Prop 98 funds are dedicated and can only be used in the educational part of our system. And then obviously with the COVID funds coming through federally, there were also a lot of funds from US Department of Education that came through to the Department of Education to then give out to our local educational agencies. We have had historic budgets last year and this year where we really see that mix of investments, a lot of state investments, but also federal dollars flowing in to address those historic budget pieces. And through that, the administration as well as the legislature really wanted to work with the state superintendent and create this opportunity to transform our schools. So you'll see around that circle some key things that were invested in. So most of these started in last year's budget, were continued in this year, and we see them launching this year. So where you see the universal meals, California was the first state to move forward with legislative action to create an opportunity for every student in California to have access to 2 meals a day moving forward. A few other states now are following us, but we were the very first to do that. And we feel like that is a really big equity piece of transforming our schools. We also look at things like expanded learning opportunities and how that supports TK through 6th grade to have 9 hours of programming. We look at some pieces in special education that really were up in, and I'll talk a lot about inclusion and how we're moving forward with inclusive opportunities in California. And then universal pre-K and how California is moving forward with that. One of the things that we really note is that California's educational system was really grounded in historically old practices, and that all of these things that are wrapping around now to create an educational system that focuses on our students, our children, and our families and what they need in 2020 and beyond. Not the system from 1950, not the system from 2019, but really what do families need now to participate in a public educational system that helps them thrive and soar and creates the workforce that we need in California to stay very competitive in an international market. So we're really excited about the interconnected nature of a lot of these investments and how it's helping us build a coherent preschool to 3rd grade system. There's a lot of research that shows that alignment and coherence across preschool into K, into 1st, 2nd, 3rd, really supports student learning and helps teachers engage in curriculum that aligns and professional learning opportunities so that they're working together. Next slide, please. We've worked with a lot of partners to develop a shared vision for pre-K to 3rd grade alignment, where we want to make sure that all children have a strong and early start to inclusive education through high quality, joyful, rigorous, developmentally informed, and coherent P3 learning opportunities to ensure they thrive in school and in life and are both college and career ready, depending on the paths they want to take. We do get asked a lot why we don't start with birth. And one of the things that we learned in looking at a lot of other states in their P3 is that when they just focused on the birth through 5, which is what a lot of them would get sort of stuck in, then they weren't creating that alignment up into the official educational system. And that lack of alignment was meaning a lot of those early investments weren't producing the long-term outcomes needed, and that coherence across the system was really key. So we wanted to start with some of that coherence, and then you'll see us expand both directions, bidirectionally, to make sure it broadens and brings in more, but as a first phase, really starting there. Next slide, please. So what is UPK? UPK really stands for Universal Pre-Kindergarten, which in California will exist by 2025-26 for all 4-year-old children. A lot of people, when we talk about it, think it's just Universal Transitional Kindergarten, and that those two are the same things, but they are not. UTK is part of UPK, but it is not the only part. And in that broader components around that mixed delivery, the California budget provides investments in pre-K for both 3 and 4-year-olds. The 4-year-old part is the universal, and it mirrors a lot of what you can find in the California Master Plan for Early Learning and Care that came out from the administration. For the 3-year-olds, it really looks at how you expand in that promise area so that more and more children who are low income, who've been disenfranchised, have opportunities for high quality preschool so they can get up to 2 years as they move through with preschool supports. And there's also funds for expanded learning so that we make sure we have the 9 hours of programming for TK through 6. A lot of our families, as you look at public education, and I think that COVID and the pandemic really highlighted that school is care for children and how you make sure that families who are working have expanded access and that children have social emotional supports, enriched STEM or science, technology, engineering, math, and other components that are part of our expanded learning programs. There are other public investments. So obviously we'll give a shout out to our federal Head Start program and Early Head Start and how that really is part of the system. And there are other private and community-based programs that provide preschool both through a home and community-based and center-based settings. And then the state continues to provide those significant investments that both Kim and Lupe were calling out around subsidized childcare, which can then provide private preschool experiences, but also a wrap around a preschool experience. Next slide, please. So how do TK or UTK, how does that work within all of that? And how do we get UPK and P3 alignment? As we look at them nested, we really see TK as a piece of UPK, but we always will call out our state preschool program that's near and dear to our heart, as well as those others I mentioned above. And then connecting those together, we hope to have more and more alignment across TK and CSPP and opportunities for shared professional learning and other pieces as we move forward. And then making sure that there are opportunities for that P3 components where they're nested and they're learning their use of curriculum, their use of assessments. And so our projects that are focused on the preschool learning foundations and updating those, as well as creating a bridge or framework from preschool up in through 3rd grade. So you'll see some components in our preschool learning foundations that do that. And then looking at our desired results developmental profile or DRDP and child observations, doing some additional work in that to support teachers and their use of it. We all know that it's wonderful to have a rich system, but if teachers aren't using it to inform their curriculum and how they're supporting children, then we're really missing a key opportunity and a key component of quality there. So in that, we're looking at some embedded additional assessments, direct assessments that would look at language literacy and math, and creating some pieces that would align so you'd have something from preschool and then up and through 2nd grade in that area. So before they have access to the state testing that happens through our TK to 12 system. All right, next slide. We do have some upcoming P3 webinars that I wanted to shout out. I hope you all saw the last one that really focused on inclusion and supporting our little ones with disabilities. That's a really critical part of our work here at the California Department of Education. And we do a lot of that work in partnership with Department of Developmental Services as they have early start and other critical components around supporting children, youth, and adults with disabilities. So our next one will be strategies to support multilingual learners in preschool through 3rd grade. This one is really designed to support local educational agencies, community-based organizations, and all of our partners to understand the strategies and supports that benefit biliteracy and language development of multilingual learners from and across that P to 3 spectrum. It really will come from a strength-based perspective and feature presentations and a brief panel from practitioners representing Fresno County Superintendents of School, the Sobrato Early Academic Language, or SEAL, and Family Biliteracy on best practices to support early educators in their work to meet the needs of multilingual learners. And then we also are developing one right now that will focus on community engagement and partnerships, strengthening P3 opportunities with tribes. As I'm sure you all know, our tribes are sovereign nations. And so how we engage and partner with tribes needs to be based in that sovereignty and really have that as a nuance. So it's not just the historical inequities and trauma that the state and federal government have put our tribes through, but also that place of sovereignty as we move forward with that. So a quick shout out to Stephanie Myers from the State Head Start Collaboration Office for brainstorming this session with me and really commit to bring in some tribal Head Start as part of that P3. Next slide, please. All right, so this will be a really quick, I'm probably out of my 7 minutes already. So I had 7 minutes allotted, but I did want to do a little bit on our budget. Hopefully those of you who are really engaged in our CDE early education budget were on Friday's call, so you've got more in depth. But let me move forward with some pieces of that budget. So next slide, please. There is an additional investment of $300 million for universal pre-K or UPK planning and implementation for districts and county offices that have kindergarten enrollment and are expected then to have TK enrollment to support county level efforts and district level efforts around UPK. That is not just focused on TK, they do have to focus on that broader system. And in that, they're able to use their dollars to help with some of the teacher workforce pipeline issues. And then there's $18.3 million per year for 3 years. So each of those 3 years, there'll be $18.3 to help with a California Universal Preschool Planning Grant Program to support preschool planning in the mixed delivery system. Those funds will go to our local childcare planning councils with a first right of refusal. And if they are not interested or don't feel like they have the capacity at this time to be able to support that, then a local resource and referral agency can step in to support that. We want to make sure it's happening in every single county. All right, next slide, please. We have quite a bit of changes to our California State Preschool Program, or CSPP, eligibility and certification, consistent with our master plan for early learning and cares goals. We have budget changes, expanded access to eligible families through things such as increasing the state median income for eligibility, so going up to 100%. Right now it's been at 85%. And we have had people ask why then is that not reflected over in the rest of the subsidized childcare system. Just a reminder that we use mainly Prop 98 funds, a little bit of other general state funds, but the 85% is what CCDF, or the Child Care Development Federal Funds, is capped at. So that part of the system is at 85%, and state preschool, as part of the education budget, is able to move up to 100%. In addition, that extended eligibility allows children who are over that, so you can still bring in a little bit. We talk a lot about segregation within our early childhood programs and trying to decrease segregation both around inclusion of children with disabilities, but also creating a more mixed income. So it's not just children who are considered living in poverty or low income, but that we start to reflect broader components of race, of income, of ability, all of those pieces to create that diversity that we know helps children thrive versus segregation. There are some other pieces in there, like having our state preschool program maintain continuous eligibility for 24 months. So an increase of that, and some really critical pieces for our children with disabilities as we move forward. So the next slide really focuses on our littles with disabilities. So not only do we have this opportunity to do that more, but there will be this requirement and holding of up to, over a couple years, 10% of slots. So starting with 5% of enrollment and really retaining that slot, so that slot is paid for. Knowing that what we've heard before from school districts is they try to place children with disabilities in our state preschool, that there isn't room for them, and that our children with disabilities come in throughout the year period. And this will really create a funded space for them to support our state preschool program, so they're not losing enrollment as they move forward with that. There's also some pieces for us to make sure we're looking at the data and providing technical assistance, and an increased adjustment factor so that the
those spaces for children with disabilities will get a higher rate, which will really help us bring in additional supports and services. The other part that's really wonderful there is another $250 million to expand our Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program, or EAP. We had $177 million in previous investments. Those dollars went so quickly and were extremely competitive. So we're really happy to be able to put it back out again and get more programs participating in that. And then an additional $2 million for us to develop a process and tools to address early identification of children at risk for developmental delays and or learning disabilities. So all of those things coming together as a whole package to really address the need in California to be more inclusive of where our children with disabilities are and to decrease segregation and how a lot of our children with disabilities are siloed over into self-contained classrooms instead. Next slide, please. I am now fully out of room, so I'll just, with this nitty-gritty one, not share those details behind them, but say that the state budget created several changes in adjustment factors for state preschool, including a cost of living or COLA, and also supports a hold harmless to allow our programs to recover and transition from COVID impacts and really address some of those things. We are trying to stress more and more how to bring in 3-year-olds. We only serve 13% of eligible 3-year-olds currently in state preschool. That's a really huge gap between those eligible versus those served. And of course, going up to 100% of state median income means there's even more children eligible who aren't served. And we want to make sure we're bringing in more and more 3-year-olds into state preschool. And then moving to the next slide, which is on universal TK, it does provide educational funds through that Prop 98 piece to really address the expansion of TK. TK hasn't expanded yet, so it will be expanding. So you'll see in August and September as our school districts open up that they will be bringing in that first expanded age cohort. And also, so it's very technical around what ages, but those cohorts are several months of birth dates. And then just a reminder that TK is not mandatory. It is something that parents can choose, just like they can choose if they are eligible for state preschool to enroll in state preschool or to enroll in Head Start. And then there was also educational funds to reduce ratios. So we have a 1 adult to every 12 students moving forward, allows CDE to create fiscal penalties if they're not meeting that. And there's also some pieces to address staffing with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing around how to issue emergency specialist teaching permits and really start focusing on child development as a core component as they move forward with that. So that there's just one slide left, I think, as we look at a thank you to all of you. And to quote Frederick Douglass, I was fortunate enough to be at a educational meeting last week in DC and got to go to the Smithsonian on African American history, and just his quote spoke to me so much around it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And to hear his story of how he came out of slavery and how important literacy was in education, and how we make sure as we continue on our equity paths that we're really supporting language and literacy and access to all of those educational opportunities so that people's lives can change and be transformed. So that is me.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. I do want to enable members of the public to provide. We have a young participant here with Mr. Andrus. Love your little baby boy. We will open the chat up now for public comment for the next 5 minutes as we continue. I am appreciating Chairwoman Johnson that we are quite behind schedule and have a really rich panel. So I'm sure people have questions for Lupe and Sarah, but I know we're also tight on time.
Real burning. Okay. Do 2 questions. 2 questions.
Uh-oh, pressure's on.
Go ahead, Rob.
Sarah, for the first time today, I heard the reason why it went from prenatal to 3rd grade and it changed to P3. So if I heard you correctly, I heard that it's because other states lost momentum when the children got to elementary school. And I just think it's really unfortunate that our state didn't try to fix that issue and have it remain P3
to third grade because, you know, and it has to do with CDE giving up infants to 30-year-olds. It's just really unfortunate, and that's the first time I heard it in this way. So if you want, if she has time, maybe she can elaborate on that, if I heard you correctly.
I'll just really quickly respond. I was an infant mental health specialist. I definitely always have focused on infants and families from the beginning of my career and how critical that is. And I would say we would even say that prenatal piece is really important as we look at things like early Head Start as well as early intervention and supports. So it is the phase piece that we can't do all at once. And I think that phasing is something that California hasn't been able to tackle very well, and people get really worried when they don't see that, but we are phasing out as we really tackle critical components. And so we'll be doing this expansion in the next couple of years to really say, and how do we connect that with this sector and this sector? So an expansion both directions, bidirectionally around our P3 efforts.
Deborah, you have the last question for this last word.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I have to apologize. I was late trying to get in. I didn't have the proper link. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible, as short as possible. So first I want to address SB 3, I apologize. Help me out, somebody. Anyway, the mixed delivery system. I want to say that family daycare providers are excluded from that. And to have networks included in there, there's only a limited amount of networks that are able to provide services for all the parents and children who need it. And to exclude family daycare providers is not doing them a justice, simply because we are willing and able to do the same work. And we all know that network providers are not even paid properly for the services that they provide. I also want to say thank you for the information on the budget. I really appreciate it. But what I didn't hear were COVID days to be included for family daycare providers who are suffering to this day. Providers are coming down with COVID quicker, and they're even more nervous now. And the COVID cost should not be referred to as a cost. It should be a part of a policy within the state of California. That is very important for providers. I have to apologize. There was so much that was going on. I appreciate it. I want to also say that there's an issue and a problem going on with providers. I want to say Tanya brought up the word data. You're correct. Data is missing when providers are speaking because providers don't have the hand-on information or the proof in their hands to give to the state for issues that are going on. All providers have is a conversation with their agencies and their parents. When a parent tells a provider that, you know what, my agency is telling me that I can't bring my child to you, I have to send them to a center. We need the state to step up and say, look, we want to meet monthly or even quarterly directly with providers and issues. And again, I want to say providers, family daycare providers are excluded. Governor, please take another look at that and include family child care providers. Thank you, everyone. And I am busy, and you can hear the background. It's the most beautiful background in the world. Children doing what they do best. Thank you.
Agreed with that, Deborah. Thank you very much for your comments and your calls and requests there. Appreciate that. So thank you for that update. We are now going to move into our home visitation two-generation approach panel. And I just have to start with, and first, Myra, I haven't seen your baby girl, so I hope she's good. And if she makes an appearance, we'd love to see her. But I want to start with this by just saying for myself, gosh, time is moving. I'm a grandma now, so I'm happily in the transition of that part of my life. But when my first son was born, I was a recipient of WIC at the time and living in Oakland. And at that time, Oakland also provided home visiting services for their WIC participants. I cannot tell you that having a 3-day-old baby boy by myself at home. That home visitor was a tremendous, tremendously impactful resource to me at that point, where I say to all new mothers that the trauma that you just experienced, right? As sweet and loving as it is, but you are trying to heal at the same time that you're trying to care for this precious, wonderful, joyful child. So home visiting is absolutely near and dear to my heart. I've had the privilege and opportunity to work with community when I work at the county level and build a program from the ground up. I also have the privilege of working with our CalWorks home visiting program that you're going to hear about in just a second. So tremendously impactful. Thank you. I know we have actually home visitors on this panel, and thank you for what you do every day for building those relationships and connection. But with that, I am going to turn it over to Myra to help facilitate this panel. Thank you, Myra.
Thank you, Director Johnson, for the opportunity to moderate this important panel. Can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. I see head nod. Thanks so much. So again, I feel privileged to be in this space with you all. My little girl is doing well. She's thriving. She just turned a year old just a little over a week ago. So these conversations and the passion and heart that everyone is bringing to this work means so much as a new mama. So thank you very much. So, following on Director Johnson's comments, all of us are here because we have a shared goal to support the well-being of our youngest Californians. And our panel today is going to talk about home visiting as a family-centered, two-generation approach to put this whole family, whole child perspective into action. And over the past 4 years, our state has significantly expanded public funding for home visiting services. And it's these investments that are truly reflecting this increased awareness and understanding about the science of early childhood and brain development and why it matters that we are supporting our families, our parents, but also recognizing the impacts of adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress. And more importantly, the opportunity we have to intervene. This is especially critical as we consider the COVID-19 pandemic and the exacerbated stress, isolation, and mental health concerns among families with young children. So identifying ways to support families to build their resiliency and surround them with these supports and services, like Director Johnson said when she had her 3-year-old baby, that's essential. And it is at this moment that we know home visiting is an ever more incredibly important service. And I want to call out that given the success that we've seen with home visitors quickly adapting to service delivery over virtual platforms these past couple of years, we also recognize that they are a flexible service capable of meeting the changing needs, the changing demands of families in the moment. So I'm incredibly excited to dig into this discussion with our incredible panel. I'm not going to do any justice to their bios, so I'm just going to let you all know who we have with us. We have Stephanie Myers, who's an Early Childhood Policy Council member and with the Department of Social Services. We have Cristina Mesa, who is also with the Department of Social Services. Jane Troglia with the Department of Public Health. Gina Gordon with the Department of Public Health. We are privileged to have with us Darren Andrews, who himself is a home visiting client and is blessing us with the little one that he's got in his life. We've got Claudia Aguilar, who is a home visiting parent educator. And we have Jackie Wong and Debbie Silverman from the First 5 California Commission. Not everyone's going to speak at the same time. I know we've got limited time, but we do want to jump into the discussion and get started. So I'm going to start with a very high level question. I'm going to ask our panelists, Stephanie, Christina, Jane, and Jackie and Debbie, can you start by give us a high level overview of the home visitation program and models? Who are we trying to serve with these programs? And specifically, what are notable successes or outcomes? This is a family-centered, two-generation approach. Why is it so important during this early childhood period that we have it available? Stephanie, can we start with you?
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I was going to say good morning or good afternoon. This presentation of everything I've been hearing this morning has been so wonderful. And it takes me back to having young children as well. So when I see Darren's little child on there, I'm so excited to talk about the things that matter most in our work. So Stephanie Myers, California Head Start State Collaboration Office. And I'm excited to share some information about Head Start Home Base option. Just as an initial reminder, Head Start programs are funded from the Office of Head Start at the federal level to local grantees. Therefore, there's agencies and organizations who have Head Start grants, and they're federally funded from the Office of Head Start. And this home-based option is for families who qualify and who are eligible for Head Start services. And just as another reminder, there are a few different kinds of variety of settings. So there's for children prenatal to 3 years old, there's an early Head Start program. And for Head Start, there's a program for children ages 3 to 5, and that's a preschool opportunity. And Head Start also offers a program called the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Model, which is a grant that partners with child care programs to provide resources and supports to benefit children and families. But for today's conversation, the Head Start home-based option are services and supports that are offered in the family's home. In California, the Office of Head Start Region 9 reports that 69 agencies, organizations, school districts, and other types of service centers currently have grants to provide a Head Start home-based option. And in this option, this home visitors work with families and children once a week in their home, which is so very important to have someone come into your home. As we heard earlier, a couple of people talking about how important that is to have somebody to come into your home when your little is so small and you're just starting out. In this option, home visitors work with families and children once a week in their home, like I said. Together, the home visitors work with the family to determine what is best for the child, and they plan together to support and help the child by using parent-child interactions, focusing on daily routines and everyday activities. And in many instances, the home visitor will help support socialization activities with other families and children in the home-based option. I'm going to provide a link in the chat that provides a wealth of information and resources for the home-based option for Head Start, including the regulations for the home-based option, Home Visitor Supervisor's Handbook, Home Visitor's Online Handbook, home-based parent video series, research, mobile tools, and so much more. And I know we only have 3 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. And I will put that link in the chat, and I will pass the presentation to my colleague from DSS, Christina Mesa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you so much, Myra, for the introduction. Christina Mesa, I'm the Chief of the CalWorks and Family Resilience Branch, which is home to our CalWorks Home Visiting Program. So really excited to share a little information about the CalWorks Home Visiting Program, the models we work with, and how the program is administered, along with some successes that kind of demonstrate the importance and value that the home visiting program brings to our CalWorks families. So for the CalWorks Home Visiting Program, while we supervise the program at the state within the Department of Social Services as part of the CalWorks program, the program itself is administered by participating California County Welfare Departments or county partners. And as of right now, the CalWorks HVP is currently serving families across 41 participating counties in the state. At least one of the, every county has the option to engage with a provider and a model. And at least one of the approved home v evidence-based home visiting models is being utilized within those counties. That is inclusive of the Early Head Start home-based option, also inclusive of Healthy Families America, Parents as Teachers, and the Nurse Family Partnership. This information can be found on our website. I'll go ahead and link that general information in chat for everybody on the line today as well. For our county partners who administer home visiting programs, for CalWorks recipients, we require that local programs are, of course, first evidence-based, as demonstrated with the utilization of one of the models I just referenced. We also require that services are culturally competent, and counties are required to speak to that as part of their plan that they submit to the state every 2 years. The program itself must also be a voluntary program for our CalWorks recipients that pairs parents of children 2 and under with a nurse or other trained professional who then makes regular visits to those participants' homes, either in person or through the pandemic, have moved to also virtual services as well. It is intended to support those families with supportive services, as we heard earlier in the conversation today, as well as support in the form of guidance, coaching, access to prenatal and postnatal care, and other health and social services. Our CalWorks participants who elect to participate in the home visiting program will have access to information about strategies to help improve their family's health, again, centered around that whole family approach to service delivery design, and provide connections to better development opportunities for their families and their children. I wanted to also share kind of two buckets of information in terms of speaking to the successes of the program. First, wanted to highlight just general population, who we're serving, and how many visitations we're able to conduct through the program. So this will be a look from January 2019 through May of this year, May of 2022, which is when our program launched. So it is fairly new to the CalWorks program. And in that time frame, we've been able to conduct about 120 home visits to our families. We've been able to enroll just under 8,700 families to the program, which has resulted in over 7,000 parents and caretakers receiving a first-time home visit, and just under 8,000 children receiving a first home visit as well. Of those home visits and those families who are accessing services, we've been able to make over 28,000 referrals for families to services, and that has also resulted in access to those services. To speak a little bit to the success of the program, now that we kind of have a high level picture, right, of how many folks are actually accessing the services, we were able to conduct in partnership with UCSF a robust evaluation of the implementation of the program. That evaluation report went live in January of this year, so I'll link to that evaluation report for everyone as well. And just wanted to share some high level findings from that report. Where we saw the opportunity to collect significant qualitative data from our families. We surveyed over 1,000 of our family participants. So that's 1/8 of the total population enrolled in the program. And of those 1,000 participants or so, 92% responded that for those who had concerns about their children's health, their child's health or development, consistently reported that HVP services help them address concerns about their child. 82% responded that they had concerns of their own health or their family's health and well-being, and they reported that HVP, the home visiting program, services help them with food security and mental health to address those concerns. And then we also saw 71% of respondents share that home visiting services were helpful with physical health or access to critical domestic violence and intimate violence partner services and resources, and also identified connections to other critical safety net benefits like CalFresh. Also wanted to highlight in terms of referrals to child welfare services, we saw less than 1% of home visiting families within that time frame get referred to child welfare services, which is significantly less when you look at the home visiting population compared to the broader population across CalWorks. So excited to see some of that early data coming through for home visiting to show a lot of prevention and home visiting as a successful intervention for our families as well. With that, I will turn things over to Myra.
Thanks so much, Christina. That's incredible data, even if it's just a preview. I mean, those are the stories that we're hearing, and I'm sure we'll hear more of. I'm going to hear a little bit from Jane and a little bit from Jackie and Debbie, and then we're gonna transition our conversation to hearing from folks that are most impacted by these programs. So Darren, you're going to be up in a few minutes. So thanks. Jane, please.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jane Trolia. I'm the chief of the California Home Visiting Program of the California Department of Public Health. And so just sharing a high-level overview that we fund and support 35 local health jurisdictions across California. We primarily support 3 evidence-based home visiting models, and those include Healthy Families America, Nurse Family Partnership, and Parents as Teachers. The models, although they have the same general goals in regards to better outcomes for children and families, to decrease child abuse and neglect, to help families become more independent economically. The models do differ slightly from each other in regards to the home visitor family ratio, eligibility criteria, frequency of home visits, as well as the cost for implementing programs. In regards to the cost for implementing the different models. The specific target populations that we serve, they vary across local programs. However, in general, our program is designed for overburdened and at-risk families who face the greatest health and social inequities and are at risk for ACEs, including domestic violence, substance use disorder, mental health related issues, and child abuse and neglect. We have several notable successes that I do want to highlight. And so the first one is that in 2022, CHBP, we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary, which is very exciting because we have been able to serve more families over the past 10 years. We had an expansion in 2019, which led to new local health jurisdictions, and we added a new evidence-based home visiting model. And we're also getting ready for another expansion in 2022. So we are still kind of working out all of those details, but we do hope to serve more families across the state. And we're also planning on increased collaboration with other MCAH programs, for example, Black Infant Health, that also will be expanding this year. One thing that I think is really important to note is that we are now funding 11 health jurisdictions through innovative home visiting projects. And so these projects are really addressing some of these issues that have existed before, but have really been exacerbated through the pandemic. So really adding additional support for maternal mental health, programs and services for children with special healthcare needs, and services for Black and rural Latina pregnant and parenting families. And Gina, who is one of our program consultants, can talk about that a little bit more. We are also really dealing, one of the ways that we are receiving feedback is that we have conducted 5 listening sessions with our partners, and we have one more to really hear about some of the other ways that we can support these programs. During the pandemic, especially, a lot of our public health nurses were redirected. And so a lot of the concerns that people have been voicing are really issues that we are interested at the state level to really assist with our LHJs with. For example, what we're hearing is really the need for increased mental health support, not just for the families, but also for staff. Staff recruitment and retention is obviously a big issue. And we do see the need for more culturally competent home visitors. I know we don't have a lot of time, so that's just a high-level overview, and I'll stop there. Thank you, Myra.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Jackie, please.
Hi, good morning. I'll speak fast. I have the privilege and honor of representing the First 5 Network, which is the state commission as well as the 58 commissions. We have seen, as you have heard, that since 2019, that California has seen an increased explosion in home visiting service funding after several counties have invested for over 10 years. So half of county commissions have invested in home visiting for over 10 years. Specifically, the First 5 commissions have invested an average, this is just an average, of $60 million annually in for both evidence-based and promising local prenatal and early childhood home visiting programs. Reporting reaching up to 60,000 caregivers and 40,000 children ages birth through 5 annually. In addition, commissions report an increasing investment in perinatal and infant toddler pediatric supports, which are home visiting-like services conducted in the office of a medical professional. Examples of programs that fall into this category include Dulce and Healthy Steps. I'd like to provide a little bit of overview of what these home visiting services are. 35% of our commissions provide comprehensive support, specifically funding local community-based organizations and other entities that provide services. consultation to assist organizations in improving their home visiting service delivery, and assistance in coordinating the local programs. 26% actually offer financial support involving funding to local community-based organizations or other entities that provide home visiting services. 9% of our commissions provide actual direct service provision where they actually hire their own home visitors. 7% offer consultation and coordination support involving helping with organizations in improving home visiting service delivery and assistance in coordinating with other local entities or service providers to improve referral pathways and BRAID funding for home visiting services locally. Not surprisingly, that home visiting started as an investment by First Five Commissions over 10 years ago to address maltreatment. Right. So, but beyond that, since then, they've learned that there have been other children and family outcomes, including supporting prenatal health, postpartum depression, children's physical health, including immunizations, well-child visits, and dental visits, and preparing children and families for school readiness. First Fives have dedicated a portion of their budgets to support home visiting because they recognize how important home visiting can positively influence children and families' outcomes. And today, 1/3 of all home visiting programs in California are funded in total or in part by local commissions to either expand services supported by other funding or to fund infrastructure, training, and coordination activities that are unavailable or insufficiently funded through other sources. As I mentioned, half of the commissions have been doing this for over 10 years. And I would also like to lift up that many of those who are providing these services are doing evidence-based practice, but also lift up the importance of looking at practice-based evidence to create a more culturally responsive, relevant program that may actually not deviate from the existing evidence-based curricula. For example, in Butte County, they have a specific program, which is a Hmong language-based home visiting program that may not meet the standards of home visiting or other types of cultural needs that families may need. So that is super fast, super high level. I know that we're the home visitors themselves. So that's a little bit about the network and what we've done over the last decade or so.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jackie. I think what we all just heard was a wealth of information regarding the various funding streams that support home visiting services, the various array of services, different program entities that support the work in order to reach families where they are. But what does that actually mean on the ground? This is, and I want to emphasize what Director Johnson opened with, right? 3-day-old baby getting the support that she needed. I know, I feel myself as a privileged, working professional. Those first few days, it's a whole new world. You don't know what you're doing. So having someone to support you and walk you through some of the questions that you have and the answers that you need. I didn't have an official home visitor, but I can count, the very many women that came over and brought me food and supported me and helped me do all kinds of stuff those first few weeks. They were home visitors at heart. So I'm really excited to hear from our next two speakers. I'm going to pass the mic over to Darren first, who as a father, he's going to talk to us about how the program that he has access to has been helpful to him. And then we'll hear from Claudia as we talk about access to these services, how people get the opportunity to have a home visitor and some of the barriers that have existed. But let's start with Darren.
Hello, Maya. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank everyone for having me and Christopher. And I would first like to say, what an exciting program. I've learned a lot from this program. This program have a lot of tools, the tools in which have helped many of us, I'm sure, in this program, especially during the pandemic, when we was confused and full of anxiety. This program stepped in and had balance. But I learned something else today. Listen to you women target all the issues in which we having with children. I didn't even know. I'm even more grateful. I didn't know all these different programs were connected to one body, moving 1 and 2 arms to reach out. So I'm grateful to be a part of this. And me and Chris will forever be a part of it. But I just like to say, yes, this program is very flexible. I've been able to communicate with other fathers like myself, single parents who feel they're not seen, not because of no reason other than they believe that. And it was that women have had a lot to deal with parenting without fathers around. And so now that fathers trying to get their foot up under themselves and be men, this program is great for them. This program would be great for everyone, but especially some of them fathers who are afraid to ask for help. And so I've talked to them guys during this pandemic. Christopher was born during the pandemic, and I have a senior, my mother who's 80. And so I was faced with a lot of virtues, but the program put me at ease. It is a wonderful program. And to hear y'all target Juneteenth, this, that, all children, but to narrow down some of the spaces that we have had over the years. I didn't have this growing up, no program. My program was the streets. This program takes over the streets. It is great. And I hope it will forever be here for us. And that's what I would like to say. And thank Claudia Aguilar for her encouragement, and Gladys for telling me about the Head Start program for Christopher and how much it'll be for him. And I'm thinking about our communities later. What Christopher will give to our community, how this program will be in his life to tell others his road trip, how it did for him, why his son is like this, why his character and personality is preparing through the tough things he's gonna have to go through. And so this program is not just good for me, it's good for society because the children in which it's instilling in. And so I'm here for Christopher and society in hope that my son contribute in Congress, contribute in any workforce, but contribute. And so I thank y'all for all the tools that you've given us.
Darren, thank you so much for those incredible comments and for the commitment that you have, the heart that you bring, the leadership that you're showing by showing up here. Really, we are all admiring you in what you do every day to raise your son and see him contribute. So thank you very much for that, for your comments. I'm going to hand it over to Claudia. Claudia, you work closely with Darren and get to see him in action every day. Talk to us a little bit about how this program operates on the ground. You heard our program administrators discuss the various funding streams and the availability of services in the community. What does it mean for the families that you work with and how they show up every day, and the workforce that you support in making these services available?
So as she said, I'm Claudia Aguilar and I work with the Child Care Resource Center and I work very closely with Darren. So I would say the home visiting program definitely helps parents build self-sufficiency and really encourages parents to take ownership that they are their child's first teacher. They are their child's advocate. They're advocates for themselves and helps them to strengthen the strengths that sometimes unknowns to them in their own lives, and really helps the parents to get connected and develop those strong, secure attachments with their child. So that way they can pass on the same strengths to their child and also kind of reflect and see, okay, what are some areas in my life that I do need support in? And then we're there kind of the bridge that connects them to their community resources. And we, it's really a partnership that holds each other accountable. So we'll ask, did you call so-and-so? How did that go? Do you need extra support in that area? And then parents will come in, share us their experiences. Hey, I called, this didn't work out. Oh, how come it didn't work out? So it really is a give and take relationship. It's a true partnership with us really stepping in that gap sometimes because some parents don't have as much support as maybe they would like. Sometimes some parents, this is the only support that they have. And so we're stepping in and filling in. And the very first time I met Darren, he said that we are part of the village that is raised children. And that really stuck with me because I would definitely say that's what home visiting is. It brings so much. I mean, I have a list of things that I want to say that the program brings, but it's just so much. But I really wanted to highlight the partnership that it really creates with families. So some of the things we do is we provide health and wellness screenings, developmental screenings for children, and then health and wellness screenings for the parents. I work for the DPSS home visiting program. So we get a material good fund that parents can use for things to meet basic needs like clothing, help for paying utility bills, among other different items that they can get with that. We've also received a CFR grant, which parents can use for COVID-related items. So let's say parents have been experiencing isolation, they can buy a bike for their child, so that way they can ride to the park and get some of those motor activities in. We do through the CalWorks program, a mental health referral program, so they can have almost immediate access to seeing a mental health therapist if they choose to go down that route. The last time I referred someone, within 2 weeks, they were speaking to a therapist. So it's a quick connection that they have with mental health services through the home visiting program. We also we give parents activities that support a secure attachment, because as we know with ACEs, that base is really a secure attachment for them to have with their parent or caregiver. And that's what we really advocate for. And that's really what the focus is. I'm not sure how much more time I have, but I'll leave it there and we can always come back and discuss more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Claudia. Again, you really spoke to the wide array of services that home visitors offer families, particularly in response to the incredible challenges of parenthood in general, but also these past couple of years. Somebody here with us now. But Claudia, I want to build on those comments that you did say about, you're connecting families to resources, and it's a wide array of resources. It's developmental services, it's early intervention, it's health, mental health services. Can you speak a little bit more about the approaches to connecting families to those services and what that referral process looks like? I love what you said about, home visitors make the village come alive, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that while I give her some notes?
Yeah, definitely. So again, we do health and wellness screening. So we'll do the ASQ 2 and 3, and we use that as a way to give parents solid evidence, I guess I can say, as support if they need to give it to their doctor. So if the child is scoring within normal limits, monitoring, or needs referral, we give the parent the summary so that way they can present that information to their doctor and have a foundation for them to build on with their doctor, or we can directly refer them to the Los Angeles Regional Center, which I have done also. And again, follow up with them and ask, how did sometimes we help with help them fill out applications. Sometimes it's helping them remember the appointments, asking about, did the specialist call you? When is your appointment? Really assess the family and talk to them about what are their needs, what do they think their needs are, and then help them connect to the different resources that we have available to us. For example, through the Child Care Resource Center, we have another organization called Baby to Baby that donates items to us. So I'll put in a request. My family needs diapers, they need clothing, and then our communications department will give me those donations to go drop off to parents. So there's just different ways, different avenues that I try to, and we all really try to, with my team, look and see what do we have to offer to our parents, so that way we can step in when they say they need these resources and which organizations we're connected with. We also do, I can't think of it at the moment, but we do quarterly community meetings with other organizations. And during that time, we exchange information about different events that are going on. So that way we all can kind of build that community and, be hand in hand with each other about, I've got this going on this month, so that way I can refer my parents to that community event. For example, back to school activities, diaper drives, food distribution events. We really try to keep in contact with the agencies that are within our community as well.
Thanks, Claudia. That's just additional examples of the broad array of services that you all are offering, and also the real partnership that you're providing and being, hand in hand with families every step of the way. I see Darren's hands up. Darren, please chime in on this conversation.
Yes, Claudia, exactly right. They have been there for me and Christopher with all the educational tools, from writing to puzzles to reading to father, son. She's right. I did mention that They offered all that. I wanted y'all to meet Christopher. This is the product of the program. He is so exciting. And he's coming along great because of your program. Say hi. Say hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi, Christopher.
There you go. Yes.
Got a little buddy, Christopher.
Yes. So I just wanted to say, this is why we're here. I'm glad to be here. Maya, I see her. Thank y'all so much for being Christopher. Love being a part of the program, and we will be a part of it as long as you have us.
Thank you.
I love that. I think everyone will agree if Christopher is in every meeting from now on. We are much more excited to attend.
You see that there? Oh, man. You see that? Yeah. Say bye, man.
Hi.
Yeah. Well, thank everyone. And thank everyone on the panel for your help. I heard everyone's occupation, and it's great. Thank everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to also invite Gina and Christina to talk a little bit about the approaches to offering families services, the wide array of services, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Gordon from the CDPH California Home Visiting Program. And honestly, I don't know if I can say it any better than what has already been said by our wonderful home visitor and father and child who have been participating. I guess I can just add that, as far as providing resources and referrals to community organizations, all three of our evidence-based home visiting models that we support have standardized assessments and referral processes in place that require evidence-based and evidence-informed tools and timeframes. And Claudia spoke about the ASQ. Our home visitors do the ASQ in conjunction with parents at different timeframes in their babies' lives, and then do refer to regional centers or their equivalents. And then, as Claudia spoke to, help support the families, the parents in making those connections, meeting with their pediatricians, and really following up on those referrals. And then there are other similar referral processes in place for tobacco cessation and maternal mental health concerns and intimate partner violence. So there are several different key areas that all of our models require, and that we require that these processes are in place to support the referrals to community organizations. And again, that, the village, and I love how you said that, Claudia, that the home visitors bring the village alive. And I also, as you were speaking, Claudia, was really thinking about some of the community events that our local agencies organize specifically to bring families together, because the home visitors are such amazing resources, but the parents too are amazing resources for one another. And our local agencies will have community baby showers, or they will host events for families during COVID, especially in outdoor, in parks and just different outdoor venues, to bring families together to share stories and to share resources and to build their social circle and help support them in, just growing as a family and being stronger parents and having a stronger community. So, that's really all that I can add. I think that it was spoken to so well by our mom or our dad and home visitor. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Gina. Before I hand it to Christina, I want to, stick with something that you just said, Gina, just talking about the importance of this village and creating spaces for connection and uplifting parents themselves as allies and partners and teachers and inspiration sources to each other, right? That network of parents, of of community support. Christina, can you speak a little bit to how that comes alive in the CalWorks home visiting program? And in particular, how do you uplift family voice? How do you uplift the leadership of families themselves, given that this approach, home visiting, is grounded in being community-centered?
Great question, Myra. And again, in terms of the first question that you asked, I agree. Claudia and Darren and Christopher shared some great information about how we offer home visiting programs. But in terms of lifting up the voices of the families, I think we had a really great opportunity to do that through our evaluation report, where we were able to obtain quite a bit of qualitative data from our families and participants who are currently engaged in home visiting. And we've been able to adjust and make some changes to the program to be responsive to those needs. One of the things we just heard from Claudia is the benefit of having that material good fund in the CalWorks home visiting program, which is essentially $500 that each family has access to purchase really critical needs that the family may have fast, right? Things like you heard bike is used as an example, but what we heard in that qualitative data is that there's needs for more expensive items like car seats and strollers. And so what we've done and what we saw through the budget process was we were able to increase that threshold to $1,000. So really excited to take those voices and make some positive changes to the program. I will also share, because yes, it does take a village, and there is great work happening right now with ECPC, the Early Childhood Education Pre-Apprenticeship Program in LA County. I see Debbie nodding because I know she's been talking and supporting this work to build a pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship program for home visitors, bringing in parents as part of this career pathway to become home visitors themselves. So really excited to see that work launch and to see where that takes us in the future of creating more opportunities in the employment side, but also in bringing in that community voice to the work we do.
Thanks, Christina. That is incredible. And again, really recognizing the leadership of parents themselves and seeing this career pathway. Claudia, please.
Christina just reminded me that we actually do have the apprenticeship program here at the Child Care Resource Center, and we do have a parent who was in our program that is in the mentorship program, and I happen to be a mentor myself as well. So that's another piece of what we do as well. So there's so many, like Darren said, moving parts, but that has been a real blessing to see the growth of the participants from the day you first met them till I think the program ends in December. So we're almost towards the end, but it's been hearing from the apprentices how much growth that they've gone through, how much they've learned. And it's definitely, I think all agencies should have an apprenticeship program. It's definitely beneficial.
And that's such an important model to really recognize that this professional development, that these skills are applicable, right? That you can grow your skills and use them in your career pathway, and that you are benefiting the system as a whole, right? These parents are incredible. The resilience, the strength, the knowledge that they are coming with is obviously strengthening the workforce for our broader community of children. So that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that, Christina. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that these last couple of years have been exceptionally challenging, right? It was already difficult for many of our communities, particularly communities of color, low-income families with children with disabilities. It was tough already. And these past couple of years into the pandemic, it just layered on top numerous challenges, economic, health, social challenges on families. So I want to hear a little bit from Jackie and Darren again, please. I want to hear from you, Jane, and others. Let's speak a little bit about the challenges that the pandemic illuminated, but also what did the home visiting programs that we have make possible in addressing those challenges? So Darren, let's start with you. What have these last couple of years opened up and illuminated for you?
First of all, thank you again, Maya. Well, like I said, Christopher was born during the pandemic. And by this being the first type of, other than the Black Plague, anything like that tested us, our state and our country, it was difficult. When I met Claudia, I spoke to her about the village because I knew it was going to take more than a father. So father can take care of Christopher, but the program was helping me so I can take care of Christopher. And so I told her the village, I shared with her about the village, of all the different fractions that we have out here. Some of the programs not familiar with each other, but they're doing the same things. And so when I met the Resource Center Care Program, it had so much different body. Then I learned today of all the other bodies it has. And I just look forward to see what extensive work y'all continue to do. There's no barrier. You know, the barriers that if there's barriers, it will be a word about consistency. There's no really barriers to this program, the wall, unless it's something that y'all are searching for to find later that's a barrier. But what I see, all parents have an opportunity to have any tools, any educator, by their side, phone call away, in their home. They have all the structures for questions, doubt, party there for questions, doubt. I like to be ashamed about questions, doubt. So the program not only had a tool, it had the educators who understand people's person. It was very easy for me and her to communicate and have a relation. Her people skill was tremendous. I thought for a minute we were building friendships. But we building on children, and she's doing a great job. Christopher is really a great kid. I believe he was going to be that anyway, but Claudia's help, he just expanded sooner. It's not taking till he's 4 years old to do these things. He'll be 2 September 21st, and he's already acting as if he's 4. You know, and so those are the things that I just wanted to say, Maya, again, and just support everyone. He wants to be a part of it. He loves it. And so say thank you. Say thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Ma. I won't take up too much time. The pandemic always would have given, would have taken and give it. The Zoom program, when the program came through Zoom, it showed us that not even the pandemic can stop raising children. Mm-hmm. Not the pandemic was going to interfere. Claudia came through my door like Santa Claus. He was there, and I was like, what is she doing? It's a pandemic. Everyone's quarantined. No, the program wasn't quarantined. We were. It came and helped me and Christopher, and it's still helping us. Now the pandemic is letting up and going through its changes. The program is making sure that we go through it and change and be prepared for it. So me and Christopher is not afraid of the pandemic anymore. We have providers who educate us about it, like the panel y'all have sitting around you. All the things y'all saying, I will still in me, and I will share with others. At the dinner tables after the pandemic with my family and friends, those who never got a chance to have dinner for 2 years, we was quarantined. I get to sit around and talk about some of the things I did, which was in this volunteer parenting. I get to share at the dinner table that I didn't sit around and just watch sports during the pandemic, take care of my son. I did a little bit of everything. I multitasked mostly with my son. And that's why I can't thank y'all enough. I really invested my time in learning for him during the pandemic, and that's what I got. I got a lot of help. There is no way I can ever thank y'all, even though you may think you may not did enough. You have set the groundwork for me to continue teaching my son to be a positive role model for his son. And my legacy is what we're doing today. He can look back on his father and see I was there for him. And that means more to me than anything. And so I thank y'all for letting me be here and helping my legacy for him. Thank you. Say thank you, man.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Myra, we're going to say, Tanya would like to say a couple words.
I just want to say something to Darren. Darren, this is Tanya. You have warmed my heart so much right now. They say that our history dictates our destiny. And you mentioned that you were from the streets, and you pointed out that there are so many absentee fathers. I really want you to know that that is part of our history. When children and families were separated as slaves, and Black men were used as bucks in order to create more children to work in the cotton fields or in the houses. That's part of the racism that exists today. But what you are doing right now as a father present in your son's life, accepting the help that is out here to help you and break some of the chains of the racism that still exists, especially in Black families, I commend you. I commend you, and you make me feel so proud right now, because I know that Christopher has a fair beginning because he has a father who's there and who's going to guarantee that his history will dictate his destiny, because his history will be correct. So I applaud you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yes, I'm very humble. I want Christopher to have a rainbow of friends of all races. I would hope that he come in the world without any judgment when he get of age, and that's why it's important. I understand what the African-American men culture have went through. I also had to go through growth to make sure that as I come and raise Christopher, I don't raise him with any hate and judgment for what I've been through. And so it's important that his white and Hispanic friends see Christopher as Christopher. That is the most important thing that I think the generation of Christopher and them is going to need. Their president is going to need, and they senators, and they governors, and they city councilmen is going to need the same group of kids who play together, who can politic together. And we won't have things like men making decisions for abortion. It's not fair. And so I just want to say to the young women that's coming of age, that will be dealing with Washington, D.C., and that will deal with healthcare and abortion, that if they mothers sit around y'all, not to worry, not at all, not at all. And I thank y'all for what you instilled in your children for the Christopher future too in time, because he's going to be there. And he's going to expect for the children, the greatest parents who raise the greatest children, that he won't be harmed by them. And I want him to be the same. And so thank everyone for what you're instilling, not only in my child, but in your own, because Christopher will be mingling with them. And I want him to be able to say, thanks to some of the children, parents, for what you did, what your parents did with my father, and what they did together. And they can move it from there. They'll have that groundwork. They'll have all these different parenting things y'all doing. They get to look up on their mother and see what she was doing when they was 3, and why to follow her, why to model my mom. She was helping children, my neighbors, my community. Yeah. And so, no, I want to be a part of this, because me and Christopher are a part of our community, and we love our neighbors, and we love our neighbors' children, and we want to see them have the best life. And so I'm involved, invested for the rest of my life for him. I live my life. I'm happy living with him, watching him grow. I'm okay now. I'm really okay now. And thank everyone.
Thank you. No, Darren, thank you. I just have to say, you are giving me life, Darren. You're dropping gems left and right. And I think I want to transition to Jackie to talk about really briefly the survey results. But I love this idea that Christopher is a walking legacy. Our children are walking legacies, and I'm going to use that. So thank you so much. Jackie, if I can ask you to be incredibly brief. And
I was going to say, how are you going to make me go after that? But Mary had her hand up. So
I do want to highlight those survey results. So I opened it up today. We've got eager questions. So if you could, though, because I think it's important to talk about those survey results.
So based on our evaluation, thank you, Darren. That is life. Right? You're about to ask me to talk about the challenges. I don't even want to talk about the challenges, right? But so some of the challenges experienced during the pandemic were, as we shifted towards Zoom meetings and whatnot, Zoom visited, we all know this, internet reliability and accessibility to technology. What happened was that our program shifted, right? We had our home visitors sitting outside of homes, putting out Wi-Fi spots just so that they could meet their folks on the other side of the door, right? So that we were safe. There was general, and you all know this, right? Distrust and historical trauma associated with social services involvement, exacerbated by the rhetoric around the pandemic and blame and the twin pandemics of racial unrest. And I'm going to name this, this is what our folks were saying: fear of deportation, fear of welfare involvement because of job loss, income loss, and daily challenges. Safety concerns associated with having another person in the home, real safety concerns, right? families and home visitors had self-identified depression due to job loss, family illness, restrictions, isolation, and other stressors, right? There was a new way of interacting that it just took time to establish. And I don't know if I've actually kind of gotten used to what it is post pandemic and post isolated community, right? Attention was diverted. Families were overwhelmed by the pandemic related to challenges and didn't have time or bandwidth to continue. Home visitors, particularly the nurses, were diverted to managing COVID-19. So workforce issues, right? Contact tracing and response. The home visitors themselves, the pandemic also impacted their own mental health and well-being, right? The heaviness of that, of the workforce, and they themselves experienced mental health, anxiety, and stress, right? So we saw a challenge about retaining home visitors, right? Which impacted family outcomes. Pulling on Darren in life, right? But the opportunities and things that we learned about is there was actually a new way of service delivery that was considered by home visitors as largely successful because they pivoted. We knew the importance, and Darren just highlighted the importance of the need to shift and be there for folks, even virtually. And we could do that safely, right? In the future, I would imagine that we should and incorporate virtual visits or a hybrid type of model for families. And so, I'll just end on that. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Myra, for facilitating. And hopefully that was fast. Now there's 13 minutes.
That was fast. Thank you very much. We still have a couple more questions, but given the limited time, I do want to be respectful of making sure we incorporate our Early Childhood Policy Council members and get this discussion going. So if there are any members have any questions, please let us know. I see Mary's hand up, so I'm going to hand it over to her and have her raise her comment or question, please.
Hi, thank you for this presentation. And I think Darren and Christopher really we want every single parent to walk away with the experience Darren has had. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that, we've been doing some listening sessions with our members who have participated in home visiting programs. And we've really gotten the sort of full spectrum of experiences where, someone said that, their nurse visitor was their best friend during the process. It's very similar to how Darren described his experience. But we've also heard the other side where, one mom had a really traumatic birth due to a lot of her experiences with the medical staff. So then to go home and open the door and see someone from the medical staff there, it might not have been the same one, but to see that was almost re-traumatizing and re-triggering. We've heard from families about, just using the term home visitor already triggers child welfare. It triggers the person that comes to check your home if you are in subsidized housing. It triggers fear. And so where we can maybe move away from that term, or at least really do more explaining of what the program is so that it doesn't turn families off based off their own personal experiences. And there are a lot of programs. And so some families have multiple home visitors. And so thinking about ways to streamline. So I just, want to say, again, we really want every parent to walk away the way Darren did. But sometimes it's down to the specific home visitor themselves. And in the listening sessions, you'll hear just the real extremes of differences between home visiting experiences. And so any way that we can move to, lessen those divides and those gaps and those harsh and harmful experiences. And it sounded like, Christina, your evaluation program really met parents where they were and invited them to provide evaluation and feedback. And then you turned around and did improvements, which is really commendable because oftentimes it stops at feedback, but then doesn't lead to changes. And so I was just wondering for others, in what ways are you engaging the families who are participating and hearing from them what improvements they would like to see?
That's a great question, Mary. I'll invite, I see Stephanie's hand up. Jane, I don't know if you have thoughts, but how we are incorporating feedback from families, experiences, to make sure we're updating and reforming these programs to be more responsive. So Stephanie, please.
Thank you. And thanks for your comments, Mary. I really appreciate those. And I just wanted to add a couple of things. First of all, Darren, thank you so much. I had to turn my screen off because my eyes were weeping a little or a lot. So I did want to share one quote that's from an unknown person. And I think this kind of, when I thought about it, I thought about you, and it said, they said I changed a lot. And I said, a lot has changed me. And I feel like it's so incredible what you've been through. And Mary, I totally agree. If everyone could walk away the way Darren has, we can all, walk away with a smile on our face. And it would be such a better place. But I would say for tribal Head Start programs, we've heard a lot about with home-based options and home visiting that we really need to focus on making sure that it's culturally relevant and people of the same culture and understanding are coming into homes. So just want to put that out there as something just in the universe that we make sure that as we're moving forward with models that support families, that we look to what they're sharing with us and what the needs are of the families when people are coming into their home.
Thanks, Stephanie. Jackie, I saw that you had your hand up.
I know that we're running short on time. So one of our policy recommendations after our evaluation was to, at the state level and even at the local level, is to actually have parents engaged in co-creation, if not oversight of the home visiting programs and design. Right. So, yay, Mary. Me, Mary. So like centering that instead of kind of the policy wonks who've always designed it, is to actually create an entity where parent voices are not just heard, right, in a focus group, but actually part of the creation and design and implementation at both the state and local level.
Thanks for that. Absolutely. Is there anyone in the room that has a question? I just want to be respectful of that before I
would say parents and other caregivers, because yes.
Natalie has a question or comment.
So it's Natalie Axel, and I first of all, I think it was wonderful. I was one of the ones still in tears, but it's great to hear these great experiences. But then also coming from living and working in a low-income community with a lot of English language learners and a lot of barriers for people to reach out and find these services and feeling comfort. I guess a cultural sensitivity. I'm glad that it's a conversation. I was really glad to see that idea of that hybrid model. And I was wondering, is there a way, like now moving forward, and of course it depends on how this pandemic hopefully ends, but if it doesn't, also keeping certain parts of that hybrid model in the future and maybe helping some people build comfort through maybe a virtual visit and then moving to an actual physical visit. Is that a possibility in the future?
I can answer that really quick for social services. Yes, we to the points that were made, the first visit doesn't have to happen in the home. It can happen at the park, it can happen down wherever the family's comfortable. And I think for us, what we've seen today, it's about building relationships, right? So to the point Mary's making about how you introduce yourself and what you say in that introduction, right? These programs have all kinds of different names. Home visitors are probably not saying, I'm a home visitor, right? It's about a conversation of these are the resources that I have, would love to get to know you and your family, and we can meet wherever's comfortable. So at least for the CalWorks program, that is absolutely part of our model, is being flexible in that space.
I can speak for public health really quickly too, just reiterating all that. Yes, we are definitely focusing on expanding the cultural responsiveness of home visiting practices. And I think as challenging as it has been to transition from in-person services to virtual visits to then some hybrid of both things, I think some important lessons have been learned in that. And I think that, at the state level and at the local level, there is a lot of interest in continuing to provide services where we're meeting families where they are and ensuring that, that they have access in the best way possible. So absolutely.
Great. Thanks.
The last real quick, Myra, I just wanted to give a shout out to Migration Policy Institute, who has developed some really helpful tools and resources on home visiting models to best cater services to our immigrant families. And so those resources are free, available, and then we've launched several technical assistance sessions across the state to support home visitors, but just wanted to give that plug to MPI.
Myra, I see that Deborah Corley-Marza has her hand up, and if I might, just Deborah, if you can make this very quick, and we'll have just a few minutes for a couple of members of the public to also make comments verbally. So,
thank you very much. I'll make it quick. Darren, I want to say to you and to the panel, to everyone here, he said something very important. He heard there is even more services that's available out there. The power of knowledge, the power of sharing. So thank you for putting that out there. Very important to get information out to the parents. And I also want to give the CDE a chance to also address why were family child care providers not in the mixed delivery system. So I would like for the CDE to address that. Thank you. Why aren't we included in that mixed delivery system and only networks? Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. So Karen, I think we're going to open it up to public comment.
Yes, thank you, Myra. And I want to give the chair a chance to thank all of you as well.
Please, thank you. Please join us in virtual and in real life. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. Bye, Christopher.
Thank you. Say bye. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for supporting us.
Appreciate you so much for being here, and thank you. Thank you for everything that you do and shared and what we learned from you today. So that's always the most impactful piece for us. So thank you all so much for this panel this morning. With that, we are going to turn it over to public comment. So both, I think, with the chat, and you are able to, at this point, raise your hand and share with us. We have a little 1-minute timer here that will keep us on track for that time. But if anyone in the public has anything to share with the council, now's the time.
Thank you so much. All right, with that, we do have a few minutes left. We can take a couple of speakers, and I see LaWanda Wesley. If you could unmute, please, and state your full name and any organizational affiliation you have, and thank you for taking a minute or less to speak.
Oh, hi, everyone. This is Dr. LaWanda Wesley, and I'm just raising my hand. One, I'm in agreement with Tanya that Darren and Christopher was everything that was life. That is our why. I'm calling in. I do represent Child Care Resource Center, but today I'm lifting up Black Californians United for Early Education, and just still wondering with CDE and those who implemented TK, thinking this is the most affordable option, this is the most equitable option. And when I think specifically for Black families, children, and educators, it is not. And we're telling you it is not. And yet you're continuing to say it is. Not all things that are free is good. And when we say 6 hours or 9 hour or programming in 2 different settings for our children is not what we want for all children. It definitely can work for some children and families. We are asking and telling you that it needs to be more inclusive of the mixed delivery system, including family childcare homes and community-based. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more hand. There are none raised at this point, but just want to take a beat to see if there is someone who wanted to speak. You can use the raise hand feature. All right, with that, we'll invite Serena Lynn. Please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, my name is Serena Lynn with Educational Enrichment Systems, and I'm a mother of 2, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And just what Dr. Wesley just said, please hear us. We're not asking you to take money away from TK and UPK, but we're telling you that there are huge inequities that are being caused by the funding that's gone to UTK and UPK and 4 and 5-year-olds and has not gone to our infants and toddlers. It's not based in research. It's not data driven, and it's harming our providers, our community providers that are serving our communities and are part of the community. And we keep hearing it's billions of dollars. You should be thankful. And I just want to highlight and raise up the entire chat, the committee. We're just trying to tell you that our infants and toddlers and the providers that serve them are in jeopardy right now. And I appreciate you listening to my comment so much.
Thank you so much. Crystal Jones, we invite you to unmute. Please go ahead. Crystal, we invite you to unmute. Are you there?
We are booked out. I'm like, do you have a cancellation? But I mean, they want me. And she's looking at these. She goes, yeah, they want you before the, I go, yeah.
We'll have to meet again.
She goes, well, let me check. She goes, I have one on Weimar. I go, yeah. And she goes, well, it's at 12:30 tomorrow.
Tisha Silas Sanchez to go next?
Yeah. I don't have.
Support team, could we ask you to mute that speaker? Thank you. Leticia Casillas Sanchez, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leticia Casillas Sanchez, representing Children Now, and I just have to give you so many props for the presentation put together around home visiting. Children Now is a huge proponent of home visiting services, and we look forward to ensuring that every family can have access to home visiting. I know it's a far reach, but I think it can be done. So I commend everyone for the awesome work that has been happening. I myself have been in the field for over 18 years, and this is just extremely exciting. I recuse my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Patty Uba, please go ahead. Patty, can you unmute? Okay, let's move on to Serena Lynn. Serena Lynn, we invite you to unmute.
I apologize. I already spoke. I need to lower my hand. Thank you.
I apologize.
I'm going to take over anyone else's time. Sorry about that.
Samantha Thompson, we invite you to unmute.
Good morning, everyone. This is Samantha Thompson, Associate Director of Early Learning Policy with the Education Trust West. And I just want to thank everyone who organized today's meeting and bringing these very thoughtful and meaningful presentations to the field of early learning. I do want to uplift, though, there were obviously a lot of concerns and continue to be concerns expressed around TK implementation. And I do hope and would offer up just the very important component of collaboration as Department of Social Services and the Department of Education continue to implement these services that are so critical to the development of young children, and particularly those that are most marginalized. So really hopeful that folks at the government level will continue to work together to minimize some of these issues being expressed here today.
Thank you so much. We're going to take two last speakers here, Patty Uba and Anna Lukamides. Patty Uba, are you able to unmute? Trying to give you one last try. Patty? Okay, so sorry. Please put your comments in chat if you can, and we're going to end with Anna Lukamides. We invite you to unmute.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to speak. So I'm calling on behalf of Head Start California. We applaud the governor's efforts to increase services to children with disabilities and dual language learners in state subsidized programs, which is in alignment with Head Start. As these policies are implemented, we recommend and encourage the state to review and align with Head Start guidelines, particularly in the identification of children with disabilities and waivers granted when programs cannot identify sufficient children. And we'd like to offer ourselves as a resource to CDE to help implement that great policy. Additionally, there's been some recent changes to CSPP regulations discussed on this call to allow Head Start contractors to follow Head Start ratios and classroom capacities rather than Title V in blended programs. And we would urge California to extend this flexibility to CCTR as well to support early Head Start and general childcare blended programs. That alignment was recommended in the Master Plan for Early Learning and Care. And finally, we would just like to express our concern with the impact that the proposed emergency specialist teaching permits will have on the early learning field. Statewide Head Start programs are closing classrooms due to lack of qualified staff. We anticipate that up to 20% of Head Start slots are in danger of closing. This proposal will exacerbate that issue. Thank you so much.
Anna, and I'm going to turn it back to the chair.
Okay, well, thank you all and appreciate the conversation and some outstanding dialogue and conversation and follow up in terms of some recommendations we hear. So I want to just note that in terms of the different spaces that we have to kind of dig in more on UPK. There's a number of things happening on the social services side too. So just want to acknowledge that and name that for additional follow-up and discussion. Our next meeting is September 14th from 9 a.m. to noon. Thank you each of the council members for your time and attention and engagement this morning. Thank you again to our home visiting, especially Darren, Christopher, and Claudia for being part of seeing it in action, feeling it, being able to walk away with the experience that we did today. So thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you again soon. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Very popular, yes, that's right. Very popular meeting.
Thank you, Tanya, for your comments.
No, I can't use today. I'm driving up to that. When are you going back? At 3. Yes, it started again.